Chapter 867. Not supporting the Moon Shadow Tribe's territory in the southwest of the Sac Kingdom was of course a joke. This was because after the Moon Shadow Tribe obtained this territory, in just a single month, they had turned this barren land into a flourishing land with lush vegetation. In this territory, the Moon Shadow Tribe used the special understanding of the elves to plant many special flowers and plants, making it the main source of raw materials for the Moon Shadow Tribe's fertilizer production. The fertilizer wasn't just the main source of income for the Moon Shadow Tribe, it was also a very important agricultural resource for the surrounding countries. If the Frestec Chamber of Commerce suddenly cut off their support for this territory, not to mention the dissatisfaction of the Moon Shadow Tribe, the surrounding countries would be the first to raise objections against the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Not to mention that fertilizer could be considered an important part of the magic machine industry. To Sui, this was a very important point to attract everyone's attention from the military magic machines back to the civilian magic machines, so how could he easily let it have a problem? After telling Twisty how to make the two financial reports that separated the military magic machines from the civilian magic machines, Sui left the office and planned on heading to the Academy of Magic. To make the civilian magic machines more eye-catching, he needed something that could attract people's attention. In the past 2 years, because New Flyer had focused on improving the quality and performance of the household magic machines, there hadn't been anything that attracted people's attention. Now that Sui wanted to attract people's attention, he needed to work on this. When he came out of the New Flyer office, Sui was about to get into his personal magic sedan when he was surprised to find a familiar pure white magic sedan quickly driving over. The pure white magic sedan stopped beside Sui, and when the driver's door opened, Steel came out. "Hey Steel, why are you back?" Sui asked in a surprised voice. "Aren't you promoting in the Fok Kingdom? What? You don't welcome me back?" Still touched her shoulder-length hair before walking to Sui's side with a faint smile. She reached out her hand and pinched his face. "Will you have more freedom if I'm not around? What are you talking about?" Sui rolled his eyes at her. "Tell me, why did you suddenly come back?" "That's right, there's something, and it's related to you, Chairman Su." "Something to do with me? What is it?" Sui was even more puzzled. Steel looked around. "Let's find somewhere else to sit down and talk." "All right." 20 minutes later, the two of them appeared on a floating platform near the cliff behind Sui's private manor. Steel took a sip of the warm tea and exhaled softly. "The Principality of Constantine is the best. Winter is not cold at all. It was so cold in the Fok Kingdom a few days ago." Sui laughed. "That's the north of the continent, after all. Of course, it's much colder than the Principality of Constantine. Didn't you see that I came back from the Malor Empire early? I was just worried that if I came back any later, I would freeze to death in the Malor Empire." "You're so sly. You came back yourself and left those people in the Malor Empire." Steel glared at Sui with a flirtatious expression. Although Steel was now a mother of 2 children and close to 30 years old, compared to the first time they met, Steel was not as youthful anymore. She was more mature and charming, and even more beautiful. Sui laughed. "They chose that themselves. If I asked them to come back, they definitely wouldn't be willing. Of course. If they can take root in the Malor Empire, it will be a great help to the future development of those people's chambers of commerce. How could they give up this opportunity because of a little bit of cold?" After saying that, Steel turned to look at the sun that was not blazing above the sea. She was in a daze for a while before continuing. "I came back from the Fok Kingdom, not only because I don't like the cold in the Fok Kingdom." Sui put down the teacup in his hand and stared at Steel. He knew she was going to get to the point. Steel suddenly stopped her plan to continue promoting the magic illusion projector in the Fok Kingdom and hurried back to the Principality of Constantine to find him. Clearly, there was something very important. "Say it. If there's anything I can help with, don't hesitate. We're husband and wife after all," Sui said with a smile. Still turned to look at Sue and revealed a smile with a trace of apology in her eyes. Actually, I didn't like to hear you say that in the past. Sue was stunned for a moment before he understood. He shrugged and said, I understand. You're a self-reliant woman. You don't want others to think that you relied on me to develop the new Moon Chamber of Commerce. I know this very well, so unless you take the initiative to ask, I rarely say that I want to help you do anything, right? Sue, you must have had a headache because of my willfulness in the past, right? Steele asked as she stared into Sue's eyes. Sue shook his head with a smile. Of course not. Self-reliant and independent is one of your strengths. Since you made your own choice, I will only support you. Why would I have a headache? Then if I changed now, I think. What's that saying again? You mentioned it to me before? What saying? Sue was confused. I remember now. It's called hugging someone's thigh. Steele clapped her hands and said with an excited expression, Sue, I've changed my mind and decided to hug your thigh. Are you happy? Sue couldn't help smiling as he stretched out his right leg. Come, hug me however you want. Steele angrily hammered Sue's thigh. It's hugging your new flyer's thigh. Sue laughed and took back his leg. After thinking for a bit, he asked with a serious expression, You mean, your new Moon Chamber of Commerce wants to expand cooperation with our new flyer? Pretty much. Sue, haven't you been thinking about letting people not only focus on the military magic machines, but also the civilian magic machines? Steele said. Yes. What? Do you have a good idea? Yes. When I was promoting the magic illusion projection device in the Fok Kingdom, I discovered a problem. That is, although many people in the Fok Kingdom have heard of the new flyer and know about the magic machines, most of them can't say what the magic machines are. That's normal. Sue shrugged. After all, the Fok Kingdom has just introduced the magic machines from our Chamber of Commerce. It's natural that the civilians don't know about them. So, after careful consideration, I feel that the new flyer should strengthen the promotion in this area. But when it comes to promotion, whether it's through posters or newspapers, it's not intuitive enough. People can't really understand what the so-called magic machines are used for. So you thought of using an illusion film as an introduction? Sue interrupted. Steele was startled. She looked at Sue with resentment. Can you not be so smart? Sue looked at the sky, speechless. Television commercials were very common on Earth. How could he not have thought of it? But because the magic illusion projector hadn't been popularized in the surrounding countries, especially in the countries that didn't popularize magic machines, it was a new thing. Even if Sue wanted to use the magic illusion projector to promote it, it was hard to achieve due to the limited hardware. And there was another important reason. Steele had always wanted to develop the new Moon Chamber of Commerce on her own. She didn't want to have too much to do with the new flyer. Even when the new Moon Chamber of Commerce purchased a large number of magic illusion projection devices from the new flyer, they were all clearly traded and done meticulously. So, Sue didn't want to be the one to bring up this idea. He wanted to wait until the time was right before deciding whether to bring up this idea based on Steele's situation. Now that Steele suddenly thought it through and brought up this idea, everyone was happy. I've thought about it. Because our new Moon Chamber of Commerce isn't that famous, if we want to quickly popularize the magic illusion projection device in the other countries, it will be very difficult and waste a lot of time. So, I hope that we can be bound together with the new flyer and promote it like the other household magic machines. Of course, at the same time, our new Moon Chamber of Commerce will also make an illusion film for the various household magic machines of your new flyer to promote them. Although the words, you and us from Steele made Sue feel a bit awkward, he knew that Steele's personality was very clear, so it wasn't a problem. Of course, that's not a problem. How about this, we can sign a promotion agreement. No matter where our new flyer promotes household magic machines, we will prioritize the magic illusion projection device. Then your new Moon Chamber of Commerce will prioritize our new flyer's products in the illusion film. This is beneficial to both of us. That's what I meant, Steele said with a nod. Other than that, our new Moon Chamber of Commerce will strive to make more modern illusion films. This way we can put the various household magic machines in the illusion film. While people watch the illusion film, they can also directly understand the use of the household magic machines. Oh! Sui was a bit surprised. He didn't think that not only did Steele think of television commercials, she even thought of product placement. Just from this aspect, Steele could be considered a genius in the world of advertising. Thinking of this, Suyi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. How about this, Steele? I'll represent the new flyer and formally propose a cooperation to your new Moon Chamber of Commerce. I hope that your new Moon Chamber of Commerce will make a special continuity film for our new flyer. The name will be The Development of the New Flyer. What do you think? Steele's eyes lit up. This is a great idea. Chapter 868. The reason why Steele said that Suyi's suggestion was a good idea was naturally because there were countless eyes on the signs that were on New Flyer. If they released this series of documentaries, it would definitely attract the attention of these people. Everyone wanted to know what kind of magic this unknown company in a small country like the Principality of Constantine had that allowed the Kingdom of Ruhr to repel the 2 invasions of the powerful Kandla Empire after receiving their support. The one who cared the most about this was of course the Kandla Empire that had suffered 2 consecutive defeats. There was less than a week until the new year and most people on the continent were preparing to welcome the new year. A diplomatic group from the Kandla Empire passed through the Norton Duchy and the Mirando Duchy before entering the Lampari Kingdom's Anvilmar city. With the recommendation of the Kandla Empire ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom, the diplomatic group was able to see Queen Seveni in the palace. The mission of this diplomatic group on the surface was to represent the Kandla Empire's emperor to send his New Year greetings to Queen Seveni. At the same time, they brought a series of cooperation agreements that the Kandla Empire had proposed to the Lampari Kingdom. Based on the surface, this diplomatic group was sent by the Kandla Empire each year, so it wasn't strange. This was because the Lampari Kingdom and the Kandla Empire had always been in contact, so the relationship between the 2 sides was quite close. Sending a diplomatic group other than maintaining the normal relationship between the 2 sides was also for some trade between the 2 countries. In the past, the Kandla Empire's diplomatic group would bring some companies from the Kandla Empire to trade with the companies from the Lampari Kingdom, which was considered a method to strengthen the relationship between the 2 sides. But before this, because the Kandla Empire was much stronger than the Lampari Kingdom, sending a diplomatic group was just for show. It was just to express their attitude, and there wasn't much trade between the 2 sides. The Kandla Empire's companies that came with the diplomatic group to the Lampari Kingdom were all small companies that didn't have much fame in the Kandla Empire. But this year was completely different. This time, the Kandla Empire's diplomatic group was not only larger than before, it was also much higher. In the past, the leader of the diplomatic group was an official sent by the Kandla Empire. They brought no more than 10 representatives from small companies and came to trade with the Lampari Kingdom. But this diplomatic group was personally led by the Kandla Empire's Minister of Commerce, Marquis Descartes. Following the diplomatic group were several famous companies from the Kandla Empire, even including the representative of the number 1 company on the continent, the Chimera Chamber of Commerce. It was an unprecedented scale, because before the diplomatic group came, the Kandla Empire's ambassador to the Lampari Kingdom had already been notified. Although Seveni was a bit surprised, she was already prepared. She personally prepared a banquet in the palace to welcome the diplomatic group. The banquet was very happy and peaceful, but after the banquet, the Kandla Empire's diplomatic group leader, Marquis Descartes, had a private talk with Seveni, causing sparks to fly everywhere. "Your Majesty, This is the goodwill the Empire is expressing to your country. Why aren't you willing to accept it? Descartes Marquis asked in a deep voice. Sevigny narrowed her eyes and wanted to give a cold laugh. This Marquis Descartes had been polite in the beginning, but when it came to the specifics, he revealed the arrogant face of someone from the Canla Empire. His tone was filled with a commanding tone, like what he said was right and proper and others had to follow it. Of course, if his suggestion was beneficial to the Lampari kingdom, Sevigny was too lazy to care about his tone. But this fellow represented the Canla Empire's Department of Commerce to Sevigny, requesting the Lampari kingdom to give the Canla Empire all the magic machine technology the Lampari kingdom had. How could Sevigny agree to this? Even though Marquis Descartes also said that the Canla Empire would compensate the Lampari kingdom, such as establishing an alliance with the Lampari kingdom and ensuring the Lampari kingdom's leadership position in the southwest corner of Signs. At the same time, he also promised Sevigny a series of practical measures. For example, the Canla Empire would open up trade channels with the Lampari kingdom. Specifically, they would allow more products from the Lampari kingdom to enter the Canla Empire, and they would reduce tariffs on most products, especially products related to magic machines. For example, the Canla Empire would open up the export of domestic products to the Lampari kingdom. For products like the Canla Empire that the Lampari kingdom lacked before, the Canla Empire would take the initiative to lower the price and guarantee that they would give priority to the Lampari kingdom. If this was before, for a small country like the Lampari kingdom to receive the attention of one of the two empires of the continent like the Canla Empire, giving them all this support and preferential policies, they would be very happy to accept this, especially since the Lampari kingdom had always been suppressed by the Sac kingdom. If they could be recognized as an ally by the Canla Empire, it would be equal to obtaining the best protective talisman, guaranteeing that the Sac kingdom wouldn't dare act presumptuously again. But for the current Lampari kingdom, not only were these conditions not attractive, Sevigny could easily tell that the Canla Empire's goal was the magic machine technology that the Lampari kingdom currently had. There were almost no benefits to this, and it was very likely that it would cause great harm to the magic machine industry in the Lampari kingdom, so how could Sevigny agree? However, when Sevigny said that she needed to seriously consider it, which was actually a tactful rejection, Marquis Descartes revealed a look of disbelief. It was like he couldn't understand why Sevigny wouldn't agree to these conditions. Sevigny was silent for a bit before calmly replying, Descartes Marquis, I'm very grateful for the goodwill the Canla Empire has shown us, but I'm very sorry that I can't transfer all the magic machine technology to the Canla Empire. Why? Descartes Marquis asked with a frown. Could it be that these things aren't something that can be done with a single word from your Majesty? Or could it be that you can't even control the small companies in your country? Descartes Marquis' words weren't polite at all. He was basically doubting Sevigny's control in the Lampari kingdom. Descartes Marquis, as the Canla Empire's commerce minister, does this mean that the Canla Empire can control all the companies in the Canla Empire as you wish? Sevigny gave a soft snort and said without any politeness, If it's like this, I really have to sympathize with the large companies of the Canla Empire. Descartes Marquis was a bit surprised. He knew that his words were a bit rash, but he didn't plan on backing down because of this. He looked into Sevigny's eyes and kept asking, Your Majesty, I believe that as long as you're willing, this isn't a problem. No, I just said that this isn't something I can decide. Sevigny waved her hand. Sevigny waved her hand. The magic machine technology you mentioned, the core is in the hands of New Flyer. Our Lampari Kingdom's magic machine companies are only authorized by New Flyer. Strictly speaking, they don't have the right to transfer this technology. Descartes Marquis knit his brows. Since they already have this technology, why can't they transfer it? Could it be that New Flyer can do something to them? Sevigny finally couldn't help giving a cold laugh. Descartes Marquis, have you heard of patents before? Patents? Descartes Marquis thought for a bit before slowly shaking his head. What does that mean? Seveny gave him a general explanation of the use of patents before adding, "These patents have been approved by the Magicians' Union headquarters, so they are protected by the Sorcerers' Guild. If any company violates the patents, they will be punished by the Magicians' Union headquarters." Hearing that these so-called patents were actually related to the Magicians' Union headquarters, Descartes Marquis couldn't help knitting his brows. The Canla Empire was one of the two empires in signs. Other than the Mala Empire, the only thing they had scruples about was the Sorcerers' Guild that was spread across the signs and had influence on all the magicians on the continent. Unless they had no choice, the Canla Empire wouldn't challenge the authority of the Sorcerers' Guild since there were no benefits at all. Seeing that Descartes Marquis looked troubled, Seveny revealed a faint smile and suggested, "Descartes Marquis, if the Canla Empire is really interested in magic machine technology, why don't you just discuss it with New Flyer?" This, Descartes Marquis couldn't help revealing a bitter smile. If possible, why wouldn't he want to discuss it with New Flyer? But based on the information from various sources, it was because New Flyer secretly provided the military magic machines to the Kingdom of Ruhr that caused the Canla Empire's failure. So New Flyer had already been sentenced to death in the eyes of many people in the Canla Empire. The Canla Empire was discussing how to deal with this damn New Flyer, so how could they run to New Flyer to discuss cooperation? This time he had personally led a diplomatic group to discuss cooperation with the Lampari Kingdom in terms of magic machines. He had even obtained many preferential conditions for the Lampari Kingdom from the Empire's parliament before leaving, all for the sake of understanding magic machines through other means. Of course, it would be best if he could obtain more information on the military magic machines, making it easier for the Empire to move in the future. But the Lampari Kingdom wasn't cooperating at all, which made it hard for him. But the Lampari Kingdom's attitude wasn't unexpected because this was something that the Canla Empire had requested the Lampari Kingdom to stop sending supplies to the Kingdom of Ruhr, but they had been rejected. Marquis Descartes looked at the smiling Queen Seveny and gave a sigh in his heart. "It seems like I have to use the second plan from before." Chapter 869. A gust of cold wind suddenly blew in from the entrance. It blew across Old Man Luff's body, making him shiver uncontrollably. His hand trembled as the pen in his hand drew a long line on the half-written paper. "Damn it!" Old Man Luff couldn't help but curse. He raised his head and saw that the door had been blown open. He quickly got up and walked over to tightly close the door. Stinky woman, she didn't even know to close the door properly when she went out. Old Man Luff cursed in a low voice and returned to the table. Seeing that the paper had been scratched beyond recognition, he couldn't help but curse again. He crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the trash can. Then, he lowered his head and continued to work. In fact, after this account book was completed, apart from his wife, Antilla, who would occasionally take a look, he was the only spectator. Even if there were 2 scratches, it wasn't a big deal. It wouldn't affect his inspection in the future. However, Old Man Luff more or less had obsessive-compulsive disorder. He didn't like such a large flaw in the account book that he was working on. Moreover, even if this account book was only for him to look at and use, it represented a small summary of the Luff Chamber of Commerce's income for the year. For him, as the chairman, the process of making the account book was a very enjoyable process. Therefore, he wanted to do it perfectly. After working on the table for about 20 minutes, Old Man Luff finally recorded the last item and announced the completion of the account book. After picking up the account book and flipping through it 3 times, Old Man Luff nodded in satisfaction. From the statistics in this account book, the Luff Chamber of Commerce's total sales for the year was 176,431 gold coins, and the total profit was 89,213 gold coins. This profit margin was even 50% of the stock market, which was a bit exaggerated. Of course, this was also related to the main products of the Luff Chamber of Commerce. The profit margin of magic machines had always been very high. This was the consensus of all the magic machine companies. Although there were more and more companies joining the industry and the profit had inevitably been greatly reduced, it was still more than 50%, which was far more than other industries. Every time he did the year-end accounting and saw such a shocking profit margin, Old Man Luff had to thank New Flyer from the bottom of his heart. If not for the fact that New Flyer had created the magic machine business, he would probably only be considered an ordinary merchant in Sultan City. Guarding the Luff Chamber of Commerce that dealt in some small commodities, earning a few thousand gold coins a year would already be considered very good. But now, the Luff Chamber of Commerce under his name relied on selling the magic kettle and the magic stove, making a net profit of close to 90,000 gold coins a year. Compared to before, this was considered a large increase. Of course, he was also very glad that he had made the decision back then. It was a good thing that when New Flyer announced that they were willing to transfer some of the household magic machine technology, he gritted his teeth and gathered 130,000 gold coins to buy the technology for the magic kettle from New Flyer. Then he bought several production magic machines from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and with the help of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's technical staff, he created a production line for the magic kettle. Then he used this very simple production line to make the magic kettle, bringing quite a bit of profit to the Luff Chamber of Commerce. In just 3 years, he had already paid back all the money he borrowed to buy the technology for the magic kettle. Then he gritted his teeth and borrowed another bit of money to buy the technology for the magic stove and the necessary production magic machines from New Flyer. In just 2 years, just by selling the magic kettle and the magic stove, the Luff Chamber of Commerce's net profit was close to 90,000 gold coins a year. Like this, in just 2 more years, he would be able to pay back all his debts and he would be able to take all the net profit each year. Every time he thought of this beautiful future, Old Man Luff's heart was filled with joy and there was no need to mention how happy he was. Of course, he was also a bit regretful. If he was strong enough, when New Flyer called the various magic machine companies of the Lampari Kingdom to invest in factories in the Mala Empire, he would have definitely gone with them. Now Old Man Luff had a bit of blind faith in New Flyer, or rather in New Flyer's chairman Sui. He felt in his heart that as long as it was Chairman Su's decision, it would definitely be good. Following Chairman Su, he would definitely earn a lot. But to invest in a factory in the Mala Empire, the initial investment would be over 200,000 gold coins, which Old Man Luff couldn't take out no matter what. He felt that he had missed a good opportunity. When he could save enough money to invest in a factory, the opportunity wouldn't be as good as the first time. Forget it, who told me to be weak? Old Man Luff shook his head and threw the only regret in his heart out of his mind. He looked at the account book on the table and revealed a smile again. Even if the Luff Chamber of Commerce didn't develop much, just based on the net profit of 80 to 90,000 gold coins a year, he would still be able to live a good life. When Old Man Luff was considering if he should take the risk in 2 years and expand the Luff Chamber of Commerce's household magic machine production line, there was a soft sound that came from the door, and it was suddenly pushed open. A strong cold wind blew in from the door, and Old Man Luff couldn't help shivering again. "Who is this?" Old Man Luff wanted to curse, but when he looked at the door, he swallowed his words back into his stomach. Instead, he revealed a friendly smile and stood up to welcome them. "2 customers, are you here to buy some household magic machines? Our Luff Chamber of Commerce mainly sells magic kettles and magic stove. If you're interested, please come with me." The 2 people who suddenly opened the door had calm auras. Although their clothes looked simple, they were actually made of expensive materials that weren't normal. With Old Man Luff's eyes that had seen countless people, he could tell with a single glance that these 2 weren't normal people. According to his past experience, if these people suddenly appeared here, it was very likely that they would place a large order, which meant that Old Man Luff would receive a large business deal. While leading the two into the store, Old Man Luff reached for the magic air conditioner remote control on the table and turned on the magic air conditioner that he wasn't willing to turn on before. Feeling the warm wind blowing out, quickly heating up the room, the two customers curiously looked at the magic air conditioner on the wall before asking Old Man Luff, "This is the magic air conditioner, right?" Old Man Luff was certain that these two came from another country, and it was a country that was relatively far away, otherwise it was impossible for them to be seeing the magic air conditioner for the first time. "Yes, this is the magic air conditioner. It's the Xinfei brand, the best magic air conditioner right now." Old Man Luff replied with a smile before taking out a magic kettle and a magic stove from the display case in the store, showing them to the two of them. "These two are the magic kettle and magic stove that our company sells. Are you interested?" The two of them looked at the magic kettle and magic stove in his hand and revealed looks of interest. "Can you demonstrate it?" one of them said. "No problem." Old Man Luff skillfully took out 2 high-concentration magic crystals from New Flyer and put them in the power boxes of the magic kettle and magic stove. Then he turned on the magic stove and there was a flame that came out. He filled the magic kettle with water and put it on the table. After a while there was a bit of steam that came out. Seeing this, the two customers looked at each other with a bit of surprise in their eyes. Old Man Luff laughed in his heart. Based on the expressions and actions of the two of them, it was clear that they didn't know much about household magic machines before, so they must be as surprised as those people who were seeing household magic machines for the first time. Normally speaking, these people would be attracted by the mysterious effects of household magic machines. Based on the aura of these two, as long as he worked hard, perhaps he would be able to make a large business deal. "The two of you, look, as long as you use this magic kettle, it won't be that troublesome to drink water." Old Man Luff began to explain the mysteries of the magic kettle and magic stove to the two of them, but who would have thought that after he finished speaking, one of them would raise a hand to cut him off. "No need, we didn't come here this time to buy these magic kettle and magic stove." "Ah!" Old Man Luff was surprised as he was filled with disappointment. These two fellows were clearly very interested, but they didn't plan on buying it. Then what did they come here for? Were they here to play with him? Old Man Luff's many years of experience in business allowed him to maintain his smile as he continued, "It's fine, the two of you can take a look and understand it a bit more. Although our Luff Chamber of Commerce's magic kettle and magic stove can't compare to the Xinfei brand, among the magic kettles and magic stoves outside of the Xinfei brand, they are definitely among the best. You can ask around if you don't believe me." "That won't be necessary." The person who spoke earlier smiled. That person said with a smile, "We heard that your Luff Chamber of Commerce's magic kettle and magic stove are the best outside of New Flyer, so we came here." Old Man Luff was even more confused. These two actually came here after asking around. But they spent so much effort to ask around, and they said that they weren't here to buy the magic kettle and magic stove. Just what were they here for? Seeing the doubt in Old Man Luff's eyes, that person revealed a smile and took out a document for Old Man Luff. "Chairman Luff, we didn't come here to buy the magic kettle and magic stove, but rather to buy your Luff Chamber of Commerce. This is the purchase agreement, please take a look." "Ha!" Old Man Luff was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 870. After the two of them left for half an hour, Old Man Luff finally recovered from his stunned state. Looking at the contract in his hand, Old Man Luff still didn't dare believe it. The other side of this contract was actually a very famous company from the Kanla Empire, which already surprised Old Man Luff very much. What surprised him even more was that the other side had offered a high price of 800,000 gold coins. It had to be known, according to Old Man Luff's estimates, the shops, factories, and hardware under his Luff Chamber of Commerce were worth at most 200,000 gold coins. Although the other side had said that this purchase included the magic kettle and magic stove technology that the Luff Chamber of Commerce obtained from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, The total price was only 500,000 gold coins. If they sold it for 800,000 gold coins, Old Man Luff would have earned 300,000 gold coins. Moreover, with 800,000 gold coins in hand, after paying off his debt, Old Man Luff would still have over 700,000 gold coins left. With this much money in hand, if he wanted to live a happy life, he could use this money to not do anything. He could have a good meal every day, living the most luxurious life he could imagine. It would be enough to support him for several decades, and he wouldn't be able to spend it all even if he died. If he wanted to continue working hard, with the huge capital of 700,000 gold coins and the experience he already had in this industry, he would definitely be able to obtain a better future. So no matter what angle he looked at it from, agreeing to the other side's purchase and selling the Luff Chamber of Commerce was a very good choice. However, after Old Man Luff carefully thought about it, he felt a bit unsettled. He wasn't worried that the other side was making a scam because the other side had the Lampari Kingdom's business department and the Kanla Empire's business department's seal on the contract, which meant that this was a contract approved by both countries. Not to mention that the other side said that as long as Old Man Luff signed the contract, the other side would immediately pay in cash and wouldn't delay at all. Seeing the other side take out a large 100,000 gold coin banknote from the Chimera Chamber of Commerce, Old Man Luff didn't doubt their words. But Old Man Luff still felt unsettled because his many years of experience told him that pies that fell from the sky weren't tasty most of the time. But the pies in front of Old Man Luff were just too tempting, so it was hard for him to reject them. When Old Man Luff was struggling in his heart, the door to the store was suddenly pushed open and a chubby figure walked in with a cold wind and laughter. "Hey, Luff, be happy for me, I just closed a large business deal." Old Man Luff saw the chubby middle-aged man who suddenly came in and asked in a surprised voice, "Doyer, what large business deal did you close?" Doyer chuckled and moved to Old Man Luff's side. He lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "Let me tell you, this is a big business deal. I sold the Alan Merchant Group." Old Man Luff's eyes widened in shock. "Luff, you sold. Oh God, are you crazy?" "I'm not crazy." Doyer waved his hand with a smile on his face. Doyer still had a smile on his face. "Do you know how much I sold it for?" "How much?" Old Man Luff knit his brows as he calculated in his heart. Doyer was his old friend. When he decided to change to the magic kettle business, Doyer had advised him not to take this risk. When Old Man Luff earned a large amount of money from the magic kettle, Doyer's eyes were filled with envy. He also gathered money to obtain the magic refrigerator technology from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, letting the Alan Chamber of Commerce focus on producing magic refrigerators. Now the Alan brand magic refrigerator was only second to the Shinfei brand magic refrigerator in Saltan City and the surrounding cities, so Doyer had earned a large amount of money. With the fame and scale of the Alan Chamber of Commerce, they were only a bit inferior to the Luff Chamber of Commerce. The Luff Chamber of Commerce was valued at around 500,000 gold coins, so if the Alan Chamber of Commerce sold it, they would sell it for around 400,000 gold coins. 400,000 gold coins? Hearing Old Man Luff's answer, Doyer gave a laugh and shook his head. He reached out a hand and a finger to Old Man Luff. "Let me tell you, it's 600,000 gold coins. I sold it for 600,000 gold coins. Ha ha, I'm really rich now. 600,000 gold coins." Hearing that Doyer's price was 200,000 gold coins higher than his estimate, Old Man Luff's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Doyer, the people who bought your Alan Chamber of Commerce, did they come from the Kanla Empire?" Doyer was stunned. "How did you know?" Old Man Luff immediately confirmed his guess. He took out the purchase agreement and handed it to Doyer. Doyer took it and looked it over before revealing a surprised look. "So it's not just our Alan Chamber of Commerce. What do these Kandra people want to do?" Old Man Luff shook his head. "I don't know. This matter is too strange, so I'm very hesitant to agree or not. Doyer thought for a bit before throwing the contract back to Old Man Luff and curling his lips. Che, what's there to hesitate about? If you think the price is right, then sell it. If it's not, then don't sell it. Anyway, your Luff Chamber of Commerce earns several tens of thousands of gold coins a year, so even if you don't sell it, you can still make a good living. Of course, from what I see, it's better to sell it because you can use that much gold coins to do other things. It might be better than now. I also think the same. But I feel that this matter is too strange and doesn't seem reliable. Old Man Luff said with a frown. How could it be that strange? Doyer waved his hand and said, Anyway, after I signed the contract, they gave me 600,000 gold coins on the spot. They didn't hesitate at all and were very straightforward. Is that so? Old Man Luff was even more confused. With such a large amount of money involved, even if the other side was a large company from the Kanla Empire and had a lot of money, they should be a bit more cautious. It would not be strange for them to delay the entire process for several months or even half a year, so why was it so straightforward this time? I say, why do you care so much? Doyer looked at Old Man Luff in confusion. You just need to care about whether you can get the money or not. Looking at it now, the other side gave the money very straightforwardly, so what's there to think about? Luff, I really think that you can sell it. After getting the money, if you still want to fight, we can go to the Malar Empire and see if there are any opportunities. Wouldn't that be better than staying in this small Sultan city? Hearing this, Old Man Luff's heart skipped a beat. This was the biggest temptation of this acquisition proposal to him. He had spent his entire life in the small Lampari kingdom. Since he was young, he had always looked forward to the Malar Empire and the Kanla Empire. He had always dreamed of living in such a large empire. Now that there was such a good opportunity in front of him, how could he not be moved? Moreover, the representatives of the two companies from the Kanla Empire had also said that if Old Man Luff wanted to invest in magic machines in the Kanla Empire, the companies they represented could help him in many ways. Moreover, the Kanla Empire was beginning to pay attention to the magic machine industry. If he was willing to go, the Kanla Empire would definitely have the corresponding policies to support him. Could be said that the opportunity was very good. After thinking for a while, Old Man Luff's heart began to waver. He tentatively asked Doyer, then, should I agree to it? All right. Doyer patted Old Man Luff's shoulder and laughed. It's fine if we sell it. The two of us have this much gold coins, we can do whatever we want in the future. It'll be much better than now. Old Man Luff saw the relaxed smile on Doyer's face and hesitated for a bit before giving a nod. This is also good, ###. While Old Man Luff was facing the temptation of his companies being bought, Sue was also facing the same temptation. After the New Year's, an envoy from the Kanla Empire came to the Principality of Constantine. This envoy represented His Highness Frank. Other than discussing the Shinfei magic race car that the new flyer had already decided on before, they also brought a further request from His Highness Frank. His Highness said that just bringing the race in isn't enough. Because if we hold the race in the Kanla Empire, we have to run back to the Principality of Constantine to order the magic race car. We even have to come here for maintenance, so it really is too troublesome. So His Highness hopes that your new flyer can open a magic car factory in the Kanla Empire, so everything can be taken care of. Sue looked at the representative of the envoy, who was Manager Mancini under His Highness Frank, who he had met before, and smiled without saying a thing. He had proposed to His Highness Frank to cooperate on magic cars before, but he had been rejected by His Highness Frank. He never thought that in less than a year, His Highness Frank's attitude would change. It really made people sigh at the impermanence of the world. But because His Highness Frank had come to the Lampari Kingdom to participate in the magic car race before, Sue could easily accept this change. Not to mention that he knew that His Highness Frank's change in attitude wasn't because of himself, but rather because of the change in attitude of the Kandla Empire, so he wasn't surprised at all. Seeing that Sue-yi wasn't speaking, Manager Mancini was a bit impatient. However, when he saw Sue-yi last time, he could still put on a condescending face. This time he was here with His Highness Frank's orders, and he knew that the inside story wasn't simple, so he couldn't be arrogant at all. Rather, he had to show a very sincere attitude. After forcefully suppressing the dissatisfaction in his heart, Manager Mancini forced out a sincere smile that was uglier than crying. He asked Sue-yi, "Chairman Su, what do you think?" Sue-yi pretended to think for a bit before saying with a nod, "I feel that this suggestion isn't bad. But Manager Mancini, did His Highness say who will be in charge of this joint venture factory?" Manager Mancini's expression immediately became serious. Of course it will be His Highness. But then he felt that his attitude was too firm, so he squeezed out a smile and continued, "Of course, His Highness won't meddle in the factory's affairs, so most of it will be your new flyer that will take care of it." Sue-yi couldn't help giving a laugh of ridicule. According to Manager Mancini's words, this was clearly having the new flyer work for His Highness Frank. This Prince Frank really didn't understand the situation. Sue-yi waved his hand. "Please go back and tell His Highness that we can cooperate, but the right to lead must belong to our Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, otherwise there's no need to talk." Manager Mancini never thought that Sue-yi's attitude would be this firm. He couldn't help being stunned as his expression quickly became ugly. Chapter 871. However, no matter how ugly Manager Mancini's expression was or how terrible his mood was, he didn't dare speak rudely like he had when he first met Sue-yi. Thinking of the instructions Prince Frank and that important person had given him before he left, he could only suppress the anger in his heart and patiently continue to persuade Sue-yi. However, no matter what he said, Sue-yi insisted that the new flyer had to be the one in charge. Otherwise, there was no room for discussion. "Manager Mancini, there's no need to say any more. This is the most basic condition for both of us. Please tell His Highness the Prince the truth." Sue-yi emphasized his tone. Manager Mancini frowned. Seeing Sue-yi's serious expression, he thought for a moment and sighed helplessly. "You're making things difficult for His Highness the Prince like this, Chairman Su. To be honest, the Kundan Empire doesn't have a unified view of your new flyer. His Highness is taking a huge risk by choosing to cooperate with you at this time. His Highness is willing to give you a chance, but you don't cherish it." Sue-yi smiled. If Prince Frank was really like Manager Mancini, still acting high and mighty, then there really was no need to continue discussing this cooperation. However, Sue-yi believed that Prince Frank was sincere in his cooperation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lowered himself and sent a trusted aide to secretly come over to discuss the cooperation. Moreover, he was certain that this represented the wishes of some people in the Kandla Empire. It definitely wasn't some rash action. Seeing that Sue-yi was still unmoved, Manager Mancini frowned deeply and shook his head. "All right, I'll go back and tell His Highness the Prince. However, Chairman Su, please reconsider. Being able to obtain the favor of His Highness the Prince will greatly benefit the new flyer's development in the Kundan Empire. I don't believe you don't know this." "I know. That's why I'm very sincere in cooperating with His Highness the Prince, right?" Sue-yi smiled. "As if he's sincere." Manager Mancini snorted coldly in his heart as he bid farewell to Sue-yi and left. Sue-yi smiled as he watched Mancini's back disappear out the door. He returned to his desk, opened a drawer, and took out a document. This document was sent by Baron Hannes. It was an analysis of the recent events in the Lampari Kingdom. The main content was about the many companies related to the magic industry in the Lampari Kingdom. According to the reports, in the past half a month, many companies in the Lampari Kingdom that were engaged in the production and processing of magic machines had been offered a high price to purchase them, and many companies had already agreed to purchase them. On the surface, the other party who purchased these companies seemed to have unknown origins, but in reality, they were all well-known companies from the Kandla Empire. Faced with these large companies that were famous in the signs, it was very hard for the small magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom to resist. Adding in the fact that the other side offered a high price, most of the purchases went very smoothly and it wasn't strange for the transactions to be high. For example, in this report, there was a small company in Sultan City called the Alan Chamber of Commerce that specialized in producing magic air conditioners. They had been purchased for 600,000 gold coins, which was more than half their valuation. After being bought, all the production magic machines under the Alan Chamber of Commerce had been taken away. Even the workers under them and their families had been taken away. To put it simply, the entire Alan Chamber of Commerce had been taken away. The only thing left for the Alan Chamber of Commerce's chairman was 600,000 gold coins in cash. Moreover, it wasn't just the Alan Chamber of Commerce that was taken care of like this. Based on the reports, all the companies that had been purchased had been taken care of in the same way. Now that these companies had suddenly left the Lampari Kingdom, the magic machine industry that had just taken shape had been affected. There was now a shortage of household magic machines in the kingdom. Hey, this table manners really are ugly. Looking over the report again, Sui couldn't help shaking his head as he gave a laugh. Actually, whether it was him or Baron Hannes, they were both clear that the companies that purchased the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom all came from the Kandla Empire. This was clearly the Kandla Empire trying to poach the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom. Prince Frank had actually put down his status to send manager Mancini to the new flyer for cooperation. Sui was certain of one thing. The Kandla Empire was definitely afraid. They had suffered heavy losses in both battles with the Kingdom of Ruhr, and they could only passively take a beating when facing the Kingdom of Ruhr's army, not being able to fight back at all. This fact had clearly made the Kandla Empire vigilant. With the Kandla Empire's powerful national strength, it wasn't hard to find out that the main reason behind this was the military magic machines. But the military magic machines were only produced by a single company, the New Flyer. Directly seeking cooperation from the New Flyer, and because the New Flyer supported the Kingdom of Ruhr, it was clear that the Kandla Empire had scruples. Logically speaking, since the New Flyer was so supportive of the Kingdom of Ruhr in defeating the Kandla Empire, they obviously wouldn't agree to cooperate with the Kandla Empire. Thus, the Kandla Empire chose to work on two fronts. On one hand, they directly purchased the various magic machine-related companies in the Lampari Kingdom to allow the Kandla Empire to have a magic machine industry foundation in the most convenient way. On the other hand, they had Prince Frank, who had previously interacted with the New Flyer, probe the New Flyer. In the end, the New Flyer was only a merchant company. They shouldn't give up on the opportunity to work with the Kandla Empire and earn a lot of money from it. Even if the probe failed, it would make it easier for the Kandla Empire to come up with countermeasures. It could be said that the Kandla Empire was able to find out the reason behind the defeat of the Kingdom of Ruhr in less than 2 months and make so many moves. This really made Sui have a whole new level of respect for them. Because of the difficulties in entering the Kandla Empire and the various troubles the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce encountered when laying roads in the Kandla Empire, Sui had a very bad impression of the Kandla Empire. Sui had always felt that this huge empire was a little too arrogant and bureaucratic. Their reactions were slow and they gave people a feeling of lethargy and unhappiness. He didn't expect that after encountering a crisis that was enough to arouse their vigilance, their reactions would suddenly become so swift and precise. This was really out of Sui's expectations. From this point of view, the Kandla Empire was worthy of being a huge empire that had stood tall in the signs for over 1,000 years. It really did have a strong side. Now that Sui had displayed a firm attitude towards manager Mancini sent by Prince Frank, apart from the fact that the New Flyer should naturally take the lead, It could also be considered a counterprobe to the Kandla Empire. If the Kandla Empire truly understood the importance of the magic machine industry, then they would definitely agree. Sui would then truly cooperate with the Kandla Empire. If Prince Frank didn't agree in the end, Sui put down the report in his hands and took out a thin file from the drawer. He opened the file to find 2 agreements and an invitation. These 3 things all came from the Mala Empire. One of the 2 agreements was an in-depth cooperation agreement between the new flyer and the Marquis of Southgard. The signing of this agreement meant that the Marquis of Southgard would open up more territory to the new flyer, allowing the new flyer to invest in more factories in his territory. The Marquis of Southgard would also provide many conveniences. The other agreement came from the Mala Empire's Ministry of Commerce. The content of this agreement was that the Mala Empire's Ministry of Commerce hoped to be able to import large amounts of magic machines to the new flyer. This included not only household magic machines but also agricultural magic machines, construction magic machines, and so on. This agreement didn't involve military magic machines, because the relevant things were all on the invitation in Suyi's hands. This invitation was signed by a marquis in the Mala Empire. On the surface, this marquis sent an ordinary invitation through the Marquis of Southgard. But in reality, this marquis held an important position in the Mala Empire. His invitation this time was actually stated in the invitation that it was sent by the Mala Empire's Ministry of Army. So in reality, this invitation could be said to be an invitation from the Mala Empire's Ministry of Army to Sui. There was no need to guess. The reason why the Mala Empire's Ministry of Army suddenly invited Sui was obviously because they were interested in military magic machines. Sui didn't hesitate to go because he would definitely go. Since the military magic machines had attracted the attention of the entire signs through the war between the Kingdom of Roor and the Kandla Empire, the Kandla Empire and the Mala Empire definitely wouldn't let go of this thing that could change the situation of the entire continent. The Kandla Empire was a little roundabout, but the Mala Empire was much more direct. When Sui supported the Kingdom of Roor in their fight against the Kandla Empire, he was already mentally prepared to sell the military magic machines to the Kandla Empire and the Mala Empire at the same time. Not only could he directly earn money from selling the military magic machines, but he could also use the military magic machines as a link between the two empires. This would allow New Flyer to more smoothly popularize the magic machine industry in these two empires, finally achieving Suyi's dream of popularizing the magic machine industry in the entire continent. The only problem that troubled Sui was how to control this. If the Kandla Empire and the Mala Empire were to be equipped with a large number of military magic machines, then with the strength of these two empires, they would definitely be able to easily defeat all the other countries on the continent and even threaten the Principality of Constantine and the New Flyer. What Sui wanted to do was to provide them with military magic machines while also ensuring that their strength wouldn't be too inflated. This difficulty, I'm afraid it's much harder than conquering the other countries and unifying the signs. Sui sighed softly, only feeling an incomparable headache. Chapter 872. Information about the large companies of the Kandla Empire buying large amounts of companies related to the magic machine industry in the Lampari Kingdom was also placed in front of Seveni. But compared to the report Baron Hannes gave Sui, Seveni's report was several times thicker and much more detailed. This was Seveni's third time reading this report, but she still read it very slowly, almost reading it word for word. This was because she knew that this matter was too important to the Lampari Kingdom. If she wasn't careful with this, it was very likely that the Lampari Kingdom would lose all the advantages they worked hard to obtain over the years. If she had a choice, she wanted to use the power of the kingdom to interfere with these transactions. She wouldn't let the large companies of the Kandla Empire swallow the companies related to the magic machine industry that the Lampari Kingdom worked hard to develop. because this would greatly affect the magic machine industry that the Lampari kingdom worked hard to develop. It would have a serious impact on the entire kingdom. For example, the large companies from the Kanla Empire had already bought 17 companies related to the magic machine industry in the Lampari kingdom, causing a shortage of many products related to the Lampari kingdom. Yesterday, the maids in the royal palace wanted to buy a new batch of metal washbasins, but they found that there was a shortage in Anvilmar City. Since New Flyer invented the magic punch press that could make different kinds of metal washbasins, this was the first time this had happened. It could be seen that the 17 companies being bought had already affected the Lampari kingdom. But Seveni couldn't use the power of the royal palace to forcefully stop these purchases. First, it was like what she said to the Kanla Empire's Minister of Commerce, Marquis Descartes. The kingdom's power should be used to protect trade and shouldn't be used to forcefully interfere, which wasn't good for the normal development of trade. Second, which was the most important reason, she wasn't willing to fall out with the Kanla Empire because of this. Although there was some discord between the Kanla Empire and the Lampari kingdom because they secretly supported the kingdom of Ruhr, since they didn't fall out, it wasn't a big problem. The Kanla Empire had actually sent an important person like the Minister of Commerce to the Lampari kingdom, which meant that the Kanla Empire wanted to reconcile with the Lampari kingdom. Seveni could firmly reject Marquis Descartes' proposal to have the Lampari kingdom transfer all their magic machine technology to the Kanla Empire because she had reason to do this. She could also use the Sorcerers' Guild as a shield, making the Kanla Empire have nothing to say. But the Kanla Empire's large companies that Descartes Marquis brought to the Lampari kingdom's magic machine companies, so it was hard for Seveni to forcefully stop them. Because this went against the freedom of trade she mentioned before, and doing this was no different from going against the Kanla Empire. Even if the Kanla Empire had lost to the kingdom of Ruhr twice, it was still one of the two signs empires. It was several times stronger than the Lampari kingdom, and was not something the Lampari kingdom could resist. If they directly fell out, the Lampari kingdom would be in great danger. Not to mention that the Kanla Empire had shown sincerity this time. When these large companies began their acquisition, Descartes Marquis immediately asked to see Seveni, hoping that the Lampari kingdom's government wouldn't stop these acquisitions. For this, Descartes Marquis represented the Kanla Empire's government to give the Lampari kingdom many preferential policies as compensation. One of them was to fully open the Kanla Empire's domestic market to the Lampari kingdom, taking the initiative to reduce the tariffs on many of the Lampari kingdom's goods. This was one of the conditions that Descartes Marquis proposed when he wanted the Lampari kingdom to take the initiative to transfer their magic machine technology, which was also the condition that moved Seveni's heart the most. Now that Descartes Marquis had taken it out and adding in the other preferential policies, Seveni couldn't reject Descartes Marquis' request at all. So when the large companies from the Kanla Empire proposed to acquire the magic machine companies of the Lampari kingdom, there was no obstruction from the Lampari kingdom's government from beginning to end. With the attractive conditions they gave, these acquisitions went very smoothly. Of course, this wasn't the main reason why Seveni agreed to Descartes Marquis conditions on behalf of the Kanla Empire. Without any backup plans, Seveni wouldn't allow this matter that could shake the Lampari kingdom to happen. After putting down the thick report in her hand, Seveni thought for a bit before pressing a button on the table. Her personal maid pushed open the door and walked in. "Is everyone here?" Seveni asked. The maid respectfully bowed and replied, "They've all been waiting in the hall for a while." "Alright, let's go." Seveni nodded and stood up to walk out. Old man Luff looked up at the magnificent roof and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. The royal palace really was as luxurious as the legends said. It opened the eyes of a country bumpkin like him from a small city like Sultan City, but it also made his heart more unsettled. "Hey, Doyer, what do you think Her Majesty summoned us for?" Old man Luff poked at Doyer, who was also looking around, and asked in a low voice. Dwyer withdrew his reluctant gaze, licked his lips, and said, "Damn it, the palace is so beautiful. When I go back, I'll definitely make my private manor as beautiful as this." Old Man Luff rolled his eyes. "All right, do you believe that you'll spend all the several $100,000 you earned from selling the company?" Dwyer laughed. "Even if it can't be the same, it's good to make it similar. I want those fellows who laughed at me in Saltan City to see who is the real nouveau riche with no taste." Old Man Luff could only roll his eyes again. All right, let's not talk about these useless things, let's focus on the present. Tell me, why did Her Majesty summon all of us?" Dwyer curled his lips and said in an uncaring voice, "So what if she summons us? What are you nervous for? Her Majesty has always been wise and benevolent. Could it be that she'll eat us?" "But I feel that this is related to us selling the company. Do you think Her Majesty isn't satisfied with us selling the company to the Canla Empire and wants to cause trouble for us?" Old Man Luff asked with a worried look. Dwyer immediately gave a laugh. "Ha, Luff, aren't you thinking too much? Do you really think Her Majesty doesn't know what we've done? Let me tell you, if Her Majesty doesn't want us to sell, we definitely won't be able to sell a single one. Do you believe me?" That is true," Old Man Luff said in a thoughtful voice, "but I still don't understand why Her Majesty summoned us. You see, I've asked around just now. These people are the same as us. They've all sold their businesses. Then it's even simpler, it must be related to this matter. But I don't think it's a bad thing, otherwise Her Majesty would have sent people to capture us." Dwyer didn't care at all. "That's right." Old Man Luff's expression relaxed a bit, but he was still a bit worried. When he was about to ask, he suddenly saw a female official from the royal palace walk into the hall. "Her Majesty has arrived." A soft call came from the female official, and the noisy crowd in the hall instantly fell silent. Everyone's gaze turned to the entrance of the hall, their faces filled with curiosity and excitement. These people were all normal merchants from the Lampari Kingdom, so it could be said that most of them had never seen Her Majesty 70 before. Now that they had the chance to see Her Majesty in the legends, of course everyone was excited. After a while, there was a young woman in a light golden robe who was dressed in luxurious clothes. She had a dignified appearance that made people feel warm and kind when they saw her. This was because the newspapers of the Lampari Kingdom had published Her Majesty 70's portrait before, so everyone knew what she looked like. But there was a large difference between the portrait and the real person. Now that they were seeing her, everyone found that this queen with high prestige in the Lampari Kingdom was even more intimate than the legends said. Although the dignified aura around her was strong, this dignified aura didn't make people feel fear. Rather, it made people respect and love her from the bottom of their hearts because of the intimacy she gave people. Seeing that everyone's eyes were on her, 70's lips curled into a faint smile. It was just a simple smile, but it was like a spring breeze that melted the nervousness in everyone's hearts. It made everyone feel as comfortable as a spring breeze. "Good afternoon, everyone." 70 raised her hand with a faint smile to greet everyone. It was like everyone woke up from a dream and they all bowed to 70. When everyone stood up, 70 nodded. She didn't waste words and directly said, "I think that many people must have guessed the reason why I suddenly summoned you all. That's right, everyone here is the chairman and representative of the companies that sold their companies to the Canla Empire. I summoned you all today because of this matter." Hearing 70's words, the people in the hall weren't surprised and let out a sigh of relief. Since Her Majesty didn't hide this matter at all, it meant that she wouldn't pursue this matter. Dwyer raised a brow at Old Man Luff with a smile, showing his foresight. However, Old Man Luff didn't look at him at all and kept looking at 70. "First, I ask everyone to be assured, I'm not pursuing this matter. Secondly, I've gathered all of you here because I want to discuss something with you." 70 paused before continuing, "Because you sold your companies, You obtained large amounts of money from the large companies of the Kanla Empire. Then I want to ask, are you prepared to spend the rest of your lives with this money? Or are you prepared to fight again? Everyone in the hall looked at each other. Even Old Man Luff turned around and looked at Doyer in shock. This was something they had discussed before, but they never thought that Her Majesty would raise it now. A person in the hall suddenly raised his right hand. Chairman Soros, do you have a problem? Seveny nodded at that person. Chairman Soros, who had his hand raised, was surprised. He never thought that Her Majesty would call out his name. Your Majesty, I want to ask, what if we want to fight again? Seveny revealed a faint smile. If you want, I have a good chance in front of you. I just don't know if you're willing to accept it? Chapter 873. 3 days later, a list of names was sent to Su-Yi from the Lampari Kingdom Royal Palace. There were 13 names on this list, which were 13 of the representatives of the 17 companies that Seveny had summoned. Seeing the 13 names and the companies behind them, Su-Yi revealed a satisfied smile and gave a slight nod. These people all had small companies or small shops under their names, but they had enough courage to buy the magic machine technology from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce and enter the magic machine industry. They had developed their small companies and small shops into a place in the Lampuri Kingdom and even attracted the attention of the large companies of the Kandra Empire. They were bought by them, so it could be seen that they were all very capable. Although 4 of them chose to peacefully pass this time for some reason, there were still 13 people who chose to fight for it, which was quite a high ratio. Actually, the good opportunity that Seveny had told the representatives of the 17 companies about was something that Su-Yi had taken the initiative to propose. The Kanla Empire wanted to obtain some magic machine technology by buying the 17 companies and then enter the magic machine industry. They wanted to touch the military magic machines in the end, so it had to be said that this was a very far-sighted approach. This was because only by grasping the related technology could they have a chance to control the military magic machines. For a large country like the Kanla Empire, even if New Flyer was willing to support them, with New Flyer's current production capacity, they were far from being able to support them. Not to mention that with the mentality of a large country like the Kanla Empire, how could they let others control their destiny? So the method they were using right now was not only the only method, it could also be considered the best method. But in Su-Yi's eyes, they were far from doing enough, so he wanted to give them another push. For the 13 companies that were willing to accept the opportunity that Su-Yi proposed through Seveny, Su-Yi would give them another chance to buy some magic machine technology from New Flyer. This technology was of a higher grade compared to the technology they bought from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, which meant that the magic machines they made would be of a higher grade than the ones their companies made before, as well as having more technology. As long as these 13 companies were willing to fight, with their outstanding abilities, they would be able to develop once they grasped these technologies. Su-Yi was certain that these people were on the Kanla Empire's watch list. If the Kanla Empire found that these people had new and higher-grade magic machine technology, what would they do? Thinking of this, Su-Yi couldn't help finding this funny. Those people from the Kanla Empire might think that after buying the 17 companies, they would be able to grasp most of the magic machine technology, but if they found that these people took out even higher-grade technology, wouldn't they feel that they spent too much money? But since the Kanla Empire clearly wanted to enter the magic machine industry, Su-Yi estimated that even if they felt wronged, they would still have to accept it and think of a way to buy more technology. Actually, Su-Yi wanted to tell those fellows from the Kanla Empire that they wanted the technology, right? That's simple, come find me. Our Frestek Chamber of Commerce is the company with the most and most complete magic machine technology. Why do you need to take a detour? However, Su-Yi was clear that the Kanla Empire had some political considerations, so it was impossible for them to find New Flyer so easily. Moreover, for the sake of balance, even if the Kanla Empire came looking for them, Sui wouldn't really give them all the technology they wanted. Even if Prince Frank took the initiative to cooperate, Sui would still have a cold and hard attitude, just to maintain this balance. Thinking of this, Sui put down the list in his hand and picked up another list that was filled with many things. After thinking about it, he picked up a pen and wrote Magic Machine Linkage Theory, Steel Smelting Standards, and Single Soldier Magic Rocket Cannon Casting Technology in 3 small lines. There were a total of 15 rows of words on this list, with each row representing a magic machine technology that only the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had. These technologies were the new technology that New Flyer was about to transfer to the Lampari Kingdom. On the surface, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce would receive 50 years of mining rights to 3 metal mines in the Lampuri Kingdom and permanent rights to 5 magic crystal mines by transferring these 15 pieces of technology, which was considered a normal transaction. But the reason why Sui chose this transaction was for the sake of balance. These 15 technologies included the Single Soldier Magic Rocket Cannon Casting Technology, and there were a total of 3 technologies related to military magic machines. As long as the Lampari Kingdom absorbed these 3 technologies, in terms of military magic machines, the Lampari Kingdom would surpass the surrounding countries. Adding in the large increase in national strength of the Lampari Kingdom, it was enough to guarantee that they wouldn't feel any pressure from the Kandla Empire. Because of Seveni's experience in the Lampari Kingdom after transmigrating to this world, Sui had always treated the Lampari Kingdom as New Flyer's biggest ally and even partner. Doing this was to guarantee that the Lampari Kingdom would have enough strength, giving Seveni enough confidence to face a giant like the Kandla Empire. Towards this decision, the high-level members of New Flyer didn't have any objections because they were all citizens of the Lampari Kingdom in the end, so of course they were happy to see their country become stronger. On the other side, although the Kingdom of Ruhr had easily repelled the Kandla Empire's 2 invasions, through these 2 battles, everyone in the Kingdom of Ruhr understood that the military magic machines had greatly increased the strength of the Kingdom of Ruhr's army. When King Tarek used many favorable conditions to exchange for large amounts of military magic machines from New Flyer, there were quite a few voices of opposition in the Kingdom of Ruhr. But after experiencing these 2 invasions, the Kingdom of Ruhr wanted to strengthen their cooperation with New Flyer, especially in terms of military magic machines. Faced with the tempting conditions of the Kingdom of Ruhr, Sui naturally didn't reject them and accepted them all. Last week, Sui had accepted the invitation of the Rudsun Kingdom's King Tarek on behalf of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, heading to the Rudsun Kingdom as a guest. He had also signed a cooperation agreement with the Rudsun Kingdom's army headquarters on behalf of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. The agreement included the Kingdom of Ruhr's order of over 7 million gold coins worth of military magic machines from New Flyer. At the same time, New Flyer would transfer a small portion of military magic machine-related technology to the Kingdom of Ruhr to ensure that the Kingdom of Ruhr could carry out basic maintenance on these military magic machines. Additionally, New Flyer would also transfer some guards from the Merchant Association to the Kingdom of Ruhr as military magic machine instructors. They would teach and train the Kingdom of Ruhr's soldiers how to use these new military magic machines. Moreover, these New Flyer guards would also help the Kingdom of Ruhr's soldiers, who were equipped with military magic machines, to build a complete combat system based on the military magic machines. This would allow them to fully unleash the power of the military magic machines. Although this agreement only involved a trivial 800,000 gold coins, it was hard to calculate how much the Frestec Chamber of Commerce earned from this. Since the Kingdom of Ruhr's army allowed New Flyer's guards to help them build a combat system, this meant that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army would have a hard time breaking away from the special combat system that New Flyer had built based on the military magic machines. This meant that the Kingdom of Ruhr's army would have to rely heavily on New Flyer in the future. Just from this point alone, New Flyer would be able to reap huge benefits in the long term. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr also requested New Flyer to transfer some military magic machine-related technology, Sui rejected it. Sui hoped that civil magic machines could be quickly popularized. He even imagined that all the countries on the continent had already popularized the manufacturing of civil magic machines and established a complete magic machine industrial system. However, Sui was very cautious when it came to military magic machines. Even if it was the Lampuri kingdom that was his partner in his heart, he had only transferred low-level military magic machine technology to them. As for the large amount of military magic machine technology that the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce had, Sui didn't plan on revealing it at all. Of course, Sui was very clear about this. Just because he didn't reveal it didn't mean that others didn't want it. There were countless people and forces that coveted New Flyer's technology, and the methods they used were even more varied. Some directly proposed to buy from New Flyer, while others, like the Kanla Empire, directly bought from other companies. Apart from these methods, there were all kinds of shady methods that couldn't be avoided. There were all kinds of methods that Sui could think of, but there were also some that even he, who had obtained a lot of knowledge from Earth, didn't expect. It was really an eye-opener. However, among these methods, there was only one that angered and worried him the most. That was the method used by the Magicians' Union headquarters. Chapter 874. Just last week, Sir Alex Ferguson once again represented the Magicians' Union headquarters in the Principality of Constantine to meet with Sui. This time, Sir Alex Ferguson brought the final decision of the Magicians' Union headquarters. According to the decision of the Magicians' Union headquarters, they approved and supported New Flyer's proposal to set up a magic machine industry academy to train low-level mages to grasp the theoretical basis of magic archery. The Magicians' Guild headquarters said that in the name of the Signs Continent's Magicians' Guild, they would officially recognize the existence of the magic machine industry to all the magicians on the continent. Obtaining the official recognition of the Magicians' Union headquarters also meant that the magic machine industry represented by New Flyer was officially recognized by the Sorcerers' Guild. It would be clearly different from the other commercial industries on the continent. The mages on the continent more or less despised merchants, but they were limited by their personal livelihood and had to force themselves to deal with merchants. Now that the Magicians' Union headquarters had specifically mentioned the magic machine industry and specially recognized it, it gave many mages a reason to officially set foot in the magic machine industry. For Sui, this was already enough. The reason why New Flyer had such a hard time recruiting mages was actually because of the issue of face. For high-grade magic casters, joining a merchant guild was already lowering their status. Joining a merchant guild as a researcher was even more unacceptable. The reason why the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce could recruit all these magicians, other than the good treatment the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce gave, the main reason was because of the golden signboard of Archmagus Camilla. Now that the magic machine industry had been officially recognized by the Magicians' Union headquarters, coupled with the Magicians' Union headquarters announcement that they would announce New Flyer as one of the merchants that the Magicians' Union headquarters cooperated with, there was no psychological barrier for mages to join New Flyer. As for the Magic Industry Academy set up by the Shinfei Union, it was even more of a blessing for those low-level magicians. According to New Flyer, they didn't even need to pay tuition fees to join this school. At the same time, after graduation, they had a great chance of joining New Flyer and getting a good job. For most of the low-level mages who were not in a good financial situation, not to mention being able to support the research of magic, even leveling up was a problem. This was undoubtedly a great thing that had fallen from the sky. For New Flyer, the official support of the Magicians' Union headquarters would not only allow New Flyer to recruit a large number of magicians to work for the Chamber of Commerce, but it would also allow Shinfei Magic Machine Industry Academy to recruit a large number of low-level magicians as a reserve for future talent. This was extremely beneficial for New Flyer's current and long-term development. Therefore, at the beginning, his conversation with Sir Alex Ferguson was extremely pleasant. Sui also seized the opportunity to raise another new proposal to Sir Alex Ferguson. Sui proposed that the Magicians' Union headquarters approve New Flyer's sponsorship of the Lampari Kingdom's annual Sorcerers Guild qualification test. For this, New Flyer could pay 100,000 gold coins to the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild every year as a sponsorship fee. Although Sir Alex Ferguson was very puzzled by Sui's proposal of sponsorship and sponsorship fee, it was very easy to understand after Sui's explanation. From Sir Alex Ferguson's personal point of view, this was undoubtedly a good thing. This was because each country's Sorcerers Guild didn't actually have any means of income. The funds to maintain operations were almost all allocated by the Magicians' Union headquarters and the special funds of the country. Because the Lampari Kingdom's national strength had always been weak, they didn't have much money themselves. Therefore, the special funds allocated to the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild were even less. According to Sir Alex Ferguson's memories, the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild used to report to the Magicians' Union headquarters every year that they had financial difficulties. This was because the special funds they received from the Lampari Kingdom were only 50,000 gold coins a year. Even if the annual allocation of 30,000 gold coins from the Magicians' Union headquarters was added, the total funds for the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild's activities were only 80,000 gold coins a year. With such a small amount of funds, it was already difficult to maintain the basic operations of the Lampari Kingdom's Magicians' Union headquarters, not to mention the various activities of the Sorcerers Guild. Naturally, it was even more difficult to make ends meet. Now that New Flyer was willing to support the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild with 100,000 gold coins a year, this would greatly improve the financial situation of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild. This was undoubtedly a good thing. However, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't immediately agree. First of all, this matter was related to the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild. He didn't have the authority to make this decision alone. Secondly, it was too novel for a Chamber of Commerce to be the sponsor of a country's Sorcerers Guild's qualification test. Of course, a decision had to be made after a good discussion. Of course, Sir Alex Ferguson was full of praise for Sui's proposal. He expressed that as the chairman of a special chamber of commerce that had a close relationship with mages, Sui was indeed very willing to consider the mages. The Magicians' Union headquarters had made the right decision to list New Flyer as an official chamber of commerce partner. However, after Sui made this proposal, the atmosphere of the conversation between the two of them instantly changed. The reason was because of a request that Sir Alex Ferguson made on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters. Previously, New Flyer had already reached an agreement with the Magicians' Union headquarters. New Flyer would transfer a piece of magic machine-related technology to the Magicians' Union headquarters every year. This was considered a condition in exchange for the support that New Flyer received from the Magicians' Union headquarters. Originally, this wasn't a big deal. Sui also knew that the Sorcerers Guild wanted to take a share of the profits from the magic machine industry. This was understandable. However, the request that Sir Alex Ferguson made on behalf of the Magicians' Union headquarters this time made Sui shocked and enraged. The Magicians' Union headquarters said that because there were changes to the various magic patents that New Flyer had applied to the Magicians' Union headquarters, they needed to be re-examined. In order to ensure that the examination was strict and fair, the Magicians' Union headquarters requested that New Flyer submit all the information related to these patents. When Sir Alex Ferguson made this request, his expression was very casual and his tone was very natural, like it was natural. However, Sui was so angry that he almost cursed out. Could he be even more shameless? Submit all the information related to these patents? Wasn't that equal to giving away all the technology related to these patents? Sir Alex Ferguson's casual words had a heavy weight behind them. The reason why Sue spent so much effort to have the Lampury Sorcerers Guild propose this innovation to the Magicians' Union headquarters was because he wanted to imitate the patent laws on Earth and protect New Flyer's patent. But he never thought that the Magicians' Union headquarters would actually steal what they were guarding. If it wasn't for Sue's calm personality and adding in the fact that he had been the New Flyers' chairman for many years, he wouldn't have been able to stop himself from angrily cursing Sir Alex Ferguson and the Magicians' Union headquarters he represented. Sir Alex Ferguson, who sensed Sue's emotions, coldly threw down a few words. If New Flyer can't provide all the information, then the patents won't be able to pass the examination of the Magicians' Union headquarters and will be declared invalid, no longer receiving the protection of the Magicians' Union headquarters. Chairman Sue, please think about the consequences. Sue resisted the urge to kick him. He had told Sir Alex Ferguson that the company needed to discuss this before making a decision, so he had ended the meeting between the two of them. However, it had been a week since that meeting, and Sue still hadn't called for an internal meeting to discuss this matter. This was because, in his opinion, there was no need to discuss this matter at all. He would never agree to it. However, Sir Alex Ferguson had already made the consequences of not agreeing to it very clear. The Magicians' Union headquarters would no longer provide protection for these patents, which meant that anyone could freely borrow and copy the designs of New Flyer without bearing any responsibility. Sue was even certain that the person who wanted to do this was the Magicians' Union headquarters themselves. Therefore, Sue was now faced with a very serious problem. Without the protection of the Magicians' Union headquarters, this meant that the various magic research of the New Flyer Research Institute could be freely used by other magicians. In fact, although magic played an important role in the various magic machines produced by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce, the magic designs were usually very low-level and rarely involved high-level magic. If an advanced magician were to focus on research, it wasn't impossible to completely crack the secrets of the magic arrays used in these magic machines. Moreover, the design of these magic machines wasn't particularly complicated, so it wasn't particularly difficult to copy them. Therefore, Sue was almost certain that as long as the Magicians' Union headquarters announced that the various magic patents registered by New Flyer in the Magicians' Union headquarters were invalid, then there would be a lot of fake magic machines all over the place. Although Sue believed that the manufacturing of magic machines wasn't something that could be solved by copying, Sue was worried that the magic machines that New Flyer had painstakingly built would represent a kind of novel, exquisite, and infinitely convenient image that would be damaged if there were too many fake products. Most importantly, the loss of such an important restriction like patent protection would cause chaos in the industry. Without order and rules, it would be very harmful to the development of the magic machine industry. This was the point that Sue was worried about because of the request from the Magicians' Union headquarters. As for the solution, it wasn't that Sue didn't have one, but the hidden dangers of this solution made him unable to make a decision. However, after receiving the letter from 70 today, thinking about how the Lampury Kingdom and the Kingdom of Ruhr had already started building the magic machine industry according to his plan, if nothing unexpected happened, the Kanla Empire and the Mala Empire would also start building the magic machine industry. Sue felt that he couldn't hesitate any longer. After thinking about it, Sue stood up and headed to Teacher Carmilla's private laboratory. Chapter 875. How do you defeat a magus? Carmilla looked at Sue strangely. Brat, do you not like me or what? Why are you asking me this question in front of me? No, no, no. How would I dare dislike you? Sue hurriedly waved his hands. It's just that this question is very important to me. Grandfather, you've trained with the guards many times in the past few days. Do you think they're a threat to you now? Didn't I tell you last time? Carmilla glared at Sue. It would be a lie to say that they're not a threat to me at all. However, this is based on the fact that I'm standing on the spot and fighting with my life on the line. If we fight properly, I'm sure they're not a threat to me at all. So you're saying, the guards aren't flexible enough? Sui pondered. Generally speaking, it's a problem of flexibility. Then what about the specifics? Specifically speaking, the current military magic machines are unable to affect space. It's very difficult to truly attack a magus who can manipulate space at will. Even if we fight in a normal space, a magus can use all sorts of magic to easily dodge and avoid the most threatening attack. In summary, it's very difficult to truly hit them, right? Sui asked. That's pretty much it. Carmilla nodded and then added, of course, with the current power of these military magic machines, even if I stand on the spot and don't move, they won't be able to break through my magic shield even if they attack me with all their might for half an hour. Sui could only roll his eyes. Magi were indeed perverted beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Although the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's military magic machines weren't as crazy as the weapons on Earth, they could definitely be considered powerful. At the very least, after the Kingdom of Roar's army was equipped with low-end military magic machines, they could easily defeat the powerful Canla Empire's army on the battlefield. Even against low-level magi, the current new flyer guards could easily deal with them. If they were well prepared, defeating an enemy at the level of a great mage would not be a problem. But in the face of a magus of a higher level, he was clearly helpless. Just as Mentor Carmilla had said, whether it was power or accuracy, it was a problem. Naturally, it wouldn't be a real threat to an archmage. However, Sui was already mentally prepared for this. Now, he was just getting more accurate confirmation from teacher Carmilla. I say, brat, why are you so concerned about this? Could it be that you want to make a move on the archmage? Mentor Carmilla asked with a puzzled expression. I'm not crazy. Sui shook his head and spread out his hands as he said helplessly, it's just that the Canla Empire and the Malor Empire both have several archmages working for them. If we don't have the means to deal with the archmages, then our new flyer will have to seriously reconsider our policies towards these two empires. This is because we have to be wary of the archmages of these two empires. TCH, I was wondering what you were thinking. Mentor Carmilla pursed her lips. Didn't I tell you last time that the Magicians' Union headquarters has a rule that great mages and those above are not allowed to participate in the war of invading other empires? What are you worried about? Or are you so arrogant that you want to attack the Canla Empire and the Malor Empire? Would you believe me if I said that I've really thought about it? Sui blinked and asked in return. Then do you believe that I'll beat you up at the first opportunity and make you give up on this idea? Archmagus Camilla glared at him and said with a serious look, I'm warning you, Sui. Although the Frestec Chamber of Commerce has developed all these powerful military magic machines, making your Frestec Chamber of Commerce guards very strong, they are still very powerful. However, the Canla Empire and the Mala Empire are huge empires that have existed on this continent for thousands of years. The strength they contain is far beyond your imagination. Don't think that you can truly defeat them with just a few military magic machines. Do you understand? I'm just joking, why are you so serious? Sui smiled mischievously and waved his hand. Don't worry, I said that I'm not crazy. How could I really go and attack the Canla Empire and the Mala Empire? Moreover, these two empires are the two most important business partners in my next plan. I still need to rely on them to make a lot of money. If I go and attack them, how can I do business with them and make money? It's good that you understand. Archmagus Camilla gave a cold snort. After pausing a bit, he continued, All right, I actually understand what you're thinking. Don't worry, as long as you don't do anything stupid, you definitely won't provoke a magus. With the current strength of the new flyer guards, whether it's the Canla Empire or the Mala Empire, They obviously won't be able to directly attack the Principality of Constantine and destroy the entire New Flyer. Moreover, you're not the only one who wants to do business with them. They also want to obtain all kinds of magic machines from you. What are you worried about? But I really do want to do something stupid, Sui muttered in his heart. After thinking about it, he temporarily put this matter aside and asked Mentor Carmilla, then, Grandfather, what's the relationship between a magus or a great magus and the Sorcerer's Guild? Is it a subordinate relationship? You're a great magus yourself. Do you think you'll listen to the Sorcerer's Guild's orders? Mentor Carmilla immediately asked in return. Well, if it's something insignificant, there's no harm in listening. But if it's related to something very important, So don't you think it's stupid for you to ask this question? Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes at Sui. The Sorcerer's Guild is only a joint organization of the Magi of the continent. In theory, it's just an organization that connects all the Magi of the continent together. It doesn't have any actual power. Of course, the reality is that the Sorcerer's Guild still has a lot of influence on most Magi. Especially low-level Magi, they'll usually listen to the orders of the Sorcerer's Guild. However, Magi at the level of Great Magi and Magi are not ordinary people. The Sorcerer's Guild can at most give suggestions and requests, but they can't directly give orders. Is that so? That's great. Sui excitedly clapped his hand. If that's the case, it won't be too big of a problem if I do something that goes against the wishes of the Magicians' Union headquarters? Mentor Carmilla frowned. What do you want to do? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Although you're already a great magician, you're not bound by the Sorcerer's Guild. But don't forget that there are still a lot of low-level Magi in New Flyer. They can still be influenced by the Sorcerer's Guild. The Chamber of Commerce currently relies on these low-level Magi. If you really offend the Sorcerer's Guild, it won't be good for the Chamber of Commerce. I understand. Grandfather, why don't you first listen to how the Magicians' Union headquarters treats us before you consider these questions? Sui said. Mentor Carmilla was startled. What? What kind of shameless thing did those guys at the Magicians' Union headquarters do again? Hearing Mentor Carmilla's words, Sui's heart immediately calmed down. It seemed like Mentor Carmilla didn't have a good impression of those people at the Magicians' Union headquarters. It could even be said that she disliked them. If that was the case, he should be able to obtain Mentor Carmilla's understanding and support. About 10 minutes later, a trace of anger climbed onto Mentor Carmilla's face. I originally thought that those guys were shameless, but I didn't expect them to be shameless to this extent. Mentor Carmilla's low voice contained obvious anger. The reason why they passed the patent so quickly was because they were interested in the large amount of patent protection fees. Now that they found out that they could make more money by making magic machines, they actually dared to directly and shamelessly abolish the patent. Very good, they really have refreshed my understanding of their shamelessness once again. Seeing Mentor Carmilla full of anger, Sui was a bit stunned. Although he was sure that Mentor Carmilla would side with him, and was dissatisfied with the Magicians' Union headquarters finding a reason to abolish the patent protection applied by New Flyer, he didn't think that she would have such a big reaction. How do you plan to respond to their request? Mentor Carmilla glanced at Sui and asked. Of course I can't agree. Sui shrugged and replied. But the problem is that if we lose the protection of the Magicians' Union headquarters, it will cause a lot of trouble for our company. So I'm thinking about whether or not we should do some remedial measures. Since you've thought of it, then do it. You don't have to worry about the Magicians' Union headquarters. Mentor Carmilla waved her hand and said. But the remedial measures that I've thought of may affect the prestige of the Magicians' Union headquarters. I think that the Magicians' Union headquarters will definitely interfere. Sui said. Mentor Carmilla snorted coldly. This matter was originally done by those people. They were the ones who attacked the prestige of the Sorcerers' Guild. If this matter were to spread, the entire Sorcerers' Guild would lose face. But I don't want to go against the Sorcerers' Guild right now, so grandfather, I need you to help me with this matter. You know more about the Magicians' Union headquarters than I do. More importantly, you are a magister yourself, so you should know more than me. Sue said sincerely. Mentor Carmilla nodded. Speak, what do you plan to do? Sue took out a document from his chest and handed it to Mentor Carmilla. This is something that I've been working on for the past few days. It's about setting up a patent protection committee for the magic industry. Chapter 876. Spring was a season where everything grew. In the Marquis of Southgard's territory, other than the wild flowers and grass that grew with the spring breeze, there were also large factories that took up a lot of space. This new magic machine industrial base should have been half finished by the end of last year, and it should have been completely finished by the beginning of this year. But when they were making this plan, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had underestimated the environment of the project. Although they expected the Mala Empire's winter to come earlier than the Lampari Kingdom in the Deep South, they never expected it to come this early. Moreover, the winter was several times colder than the Lampari Kingdom, and they never expected the Mala Empire's winter to affect the project this much, so they couldn't finish the project before the end of the year. It was a good thing that the New Flyer and the other magic machine companies that came to the Mala Empire to invest in factories didn't expect to start production in the first year. Although it was delayed, it didn't affect them that much and it gave them more time to prepare. Then when spring came this year, large amounts of goods came to the Marquis of Southgard's territory with the transport magic cars of the various companies. The construction site that had been stopped because of the cold winter began again. Because they had enough preparations, when they started again, the construction speed of the factories in the Magic Machine Industrial Base was much faster than before. With the current speed, as long as nothing unexpected happened, it would take at most June to finish. It was only a month longer than the original plan, so it wasn't too exaggerated. Of course, these factories could be delayed by a month and it wouldn't affect anything. But for the large amount of farmland on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, not to mention a month, it would be a problem even if it was delayed by a week. With the help of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce last year, the Marquis of Southgard had increased the amount of farmland on his territory by 2 times. With the help of the magic planter and the other agricultural magic machines, he had planted wheat on the extra farmland. Now that spring was here, the farmland that had been reclaimed was growing smoothly and there was a bountiful harvest coming. But without the help of the agricultural magic machines, the Marquis of Southgard was certain that he wouldn't be able to find enough people to harvest it. So when the first spring breeze came, he was already looking forward to the arrival of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. On a certain day in early April, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce finally arrived. At the same time, he was looking forward to another group of people, which was the motorcade from New Flyer. Looking at the long line of large transport magic cars that was at least 2 kilometers long, the Marquis of Southgard couldn't help feeling emotional. Apart from the general mobilization of logistics during the Empire's war, the chances of seeing such a huge convoy galloping on the road were quite small. Moreover, this motorcade wasn't the traditional transport horse carriages from before, rather it was the most advanced large transport magic cars. Not to mention the capacity being 10 times that of the traditional transport horse carriages, even their speed and endurance far surpassed them. This motorcade of large transport magic cars, naturally the amount of goods they carried was shocking. The 20 large transport magic cars at the front all had the symbol of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. When they entered the range of the Marquis of Southgard's private manor, Chairman Cantona jumped out of the passenger seat of the first large transport magic car. "Sir Marquis, I'm not late, right?" When he got out, Chairman Cantona immediately waved his hand at the Marquis of Southgard while laughing. The Marquis of Southgard nodded with a faint smile. He looked at the motorcade behind them before saying to Chairman Cantona, "Chairman Cantona, it's been hard on you. Are those behind the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce's transport magic cars?" Of course. Other than New Flyer, how could the other companies make such a big lineup? But it's wrong to say that these transport magic cars belong to the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce because they belong to the Fersen Transport Chamber of Commerce. They are just transporting goods for the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce. Chairman Cantona replied. The Marquis of Southgard slightly knit his brows, looking a bit confused. The large transport magic cars are all made by New Flyer, so why don't they make their own transport fleet and have others transport goods for them? I really did ask Chairman Su this question before. He said that New Flyer is mainly focused on researching and making magic machines, leaving other things to other companies. New Flyer won't interfere as much as possible. The reason why they don't make their own transport fleet should be because of this. The Marquis of Southgard shook his head, looking a bit confused. But he didn't care about this problem. After pausing, he looked at the motorcade behind them again. Since New Flyer's motorcade is here, where is Chairman Su? Why don't I see him? It took us 4 days to get here, so Chairman Su is very busy. He didn't want to waste that much time on the road, so he set off after us this time. If it's calculated, Chairman Cantona replied before turning to look into the sky in the distance. He should be here by now. The Marquis of Southgard was surprised. Since Su-yi set off after them, how could he have arrived when they had just arrived? When he wanted to ask what was going on, Chairman Cantona suddenly pointed in the direction he was looking. He's here. The Marquis of Southgard looked in that direction in a daze and found a black dot quickly approaching them from the distance. After a while, the black dot quickly turned into a black cloud. Hearing the faint sound of machines in the distance, the Marquis of Southgard instantly reacted. Magic airship? So Chairman Su came here in a magic airship? That's right, otherwise how could he have arrived so quickly? Chairman Cantona turned back with a smile. The Marquis of Southgard looked at the magic airship in the sky that was quickly approaching, and his expression was a bit strange. When he was investigating the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, of course he had seen the existence of the magic airship. He had even been invited by Su-yi to experience it. He had been surprised by how amazing the magic airship was back then, but when he mentioned that he wanted to buy a few to bring back to the Mala Empire, Su-yi had changed the topic. He never thought that Su-yi would come here in a magic airship. He believed that Su-yi wouldn't do something meaningless. Bringing the magic airship here, did that mean that he was finally willing to sell the magic airship? If it was like this, it really was good news. Sir Marquis, you must have many things to discuss with Chairman Su, so I won't disturb you here. I'll go and arrange for the workers to prepare first. There aren't many days until the spring harvest, so we have to hurry. Chairman Cantona suddenly looked away from the sky. Ah, that's right. The Marquis of Southgard was surprised, but he quickly reacted. He waved his hand behind him, and called Baron Franklin, who had been waiting on the side. Chairman Cantona, you're quite familiar with Franklin, so I've had him help you with your work during this time. Right, you don't have to rush to work today, just unload the things. I'll be holding a banquet in the manor tonight, so Chairman Cantona, please come. Chairman Cantona laughed. Sir Marquis' banquet, how could I miss it? All right, Sir Marquis, we'll see you tonight. After saying this, Chairman Cantona called out to Baron Franklin, who had an excited look. The two of them led the 20 large transport magic cars with the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's banner to the warehouse that the Marquis of Southgard had already prepared. When they walked away, there was a sound that wasn't that strong, but it had a very special mechanical sound that came from above them. The magic airship landed not far away from the Marquis of Southgard. The door opened and Su-yi came out. The Marquis of Southgard immediately came forward with a wide smile. Chairman Su, welcome again. Su-yi quickly came forward and gave a slight bow to the Marquis of Southgard before saying with a faint smile, Sir Marquis, I've made you wait. No, I didn't wait long. Chairman Cantona and the others have just arrived and Chairman Su is already here. It can't be that you already made an appointment, right? It was just a coincidence. Su-yi casually replied before turning to look at the motorcade that was parked in the distance. He then said to the Marquis of Southgard, Sir Marquis, how about we take a look at the goods we brought this time? All right. The Marquis of Southgard immediately agreed. Without any hesitation, it could even be said that he quickly walked over to the motorcade in the back. Seeing his quick steps, Su-yi couldn't help smiling as he quickly followed him. Chairman Cantona had taken away 20 large transport magic cars, so there were 73 left. Su-yi brought the Marquis of Southgard to look at the 40 large transport magic cars in front and found that they were filled with all kinds of agricultural magic machines. These agricultural magic machines were all ordered by the nobles of the Mala Empire from New Flyer. Only a small part of them belonged to the Marquis of Southgard and most of them belonged to nobles who were close to the Marquis of Southgard, but didn't have a chance to cooperate with the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. Of the 33 large transport magic cars, the first 23 were filled with various household magic machines and construction magic machines that the New Flyer had developed. There were also things like bicycles that weren't considered magic machines, but were products made with magic machines. There were less than 5 sets of these things. The goal of this shipment wasn't to satisfy the needs of the Marquis of Southgard, but rather for other uses. As for the last 10 large transport magic cars, they were filled with the things that the Marquis of Southgard cared about the most. Chapter 877. The waterproof cloth covering the trunk of the large transport magic car was pulled open, revealing white packages that were stuffed in the trunk. The Marquis of Southgard took a deep breath and smelled the special smell coming from the white packages. His eyes lit up and he said in an excited voice, "This is all fertilizer?" Su-yi nodded with a faint smile, "Yes. Sir Marquis, there are a total of 200 tons of fertilizer in these 10 cars, and they all come from the Moon Shadow Tribe. The Moon Shadow Tribe's elder Lysania wanted me to send her regards to you when I saw you." That elven elder? The Marquis of Southgard's lips twitched and his expression became strange. When he was investigating the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, the Marquis of Southgard learned that the New Flyer was related to the elves and had even set up a company with the elves. He had been very shocked at that time. When he learned that fertilizer was an important commodity for growing crops and it was controlled by the Moon Shadow Tribe, the Marquis of Southgard felt it was even more strange. Making a deal with the elves? This really was a new experience. But when he came in contact with the elven representatives sent by the Moon Shadow Tribe and discussed purchasing fertilizer, other than their appearance being different from humans, the way they did things was no different from human merchants. If he had to compare, the elves of the Moon Shadow Tribe were more detailed than the human merchants. The Marquis of Southgard couldn't find a single mistake. The Marquis of Southgard had never seen Elder Lysania of the Moon Shadow Tribe before, but now that they had a deal, she had specially sent Su-yi to greet him. This really was the standard human way of communicating. It didn't match the style of the proud elves at all. It can't be that Chairman Su just casually said this, right? The Marquis of Southgard shook his head and threw away these random thoughts. He checked the cars one by one with Su-yi and after confirming that the 10 large transport magic cars were filled with urgently needed fertilizer, he was filled with joy. It was about to be the spring planting season. Not only did they open up 300 hectares of farmland with the help of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, they also had large amounts of fertilizer. If they followed the data from New Flyer and the data from the Marquis of Southgard's own investigations in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, when it came to the fall harvest, the wheat yield on his territory would increase by 1,000 tons. This was a very shocking number. One had to know that his private territory could only receive a little more than 400 tons every autumn harvest. Now, he could more than double the harvest, which was undoubtedly quite an exaggeration. If it wasn't for the fact that the Marquis of Southgard had personally seen it in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, he definitely wouldn't have believed such an exaggerated matter. After inspecting it, the Marquis of Southgard waved his hand and had the people who had already prepared help the motorcade unload the goods. He then invited Sue-yi into his manor. Chairman Sue, the people from the army headquarters arrived yesterday and are waiting inside. Seeing that they were about to enter the living room, the Marquis of Southgard reminded Sue-yi in a low voice. Sue-yi was a bit surprised. The people from the Malur Empire's army were quite proactive, actually waiting here for him a day ahead of time. Compared to the arrogance and neglect of the Kanla Empire, the performance of the Malur Empire's army could be said to be full of sincerity. Entering the living room, as expected, 3 men wearing the Malur Empire's army uniform were seated. When they saw Sue-yi and the Marquis of Southgard come in together, they all set their eyes on Sue-yi. The Marquis of Southgard let out a timely laugh and said, "Come, Chairman Sue, let me introduce you. These 3 are from the Empire's army, respectively under the Military Intelligence Department, Logistics Department, and Battle Staff Department." After saying this, the Marquis of Southgard introduced the names of the 3 men, and then introduced Sue-yi to the 3 men. "Chairman Sue, I've heard of your name for a long time. I didn't expect you to be much younger than I thought. This is really a surprise." The first to reach out and shake Sue-yi's hand was Viscount Ito O from the Malur Empire's Army's Logistics Department. Compared to the slightly scrutinizing attitude of the other 2 men, Viscount Ito O's attitude towards Sue-yi was much more enthusiastic. Sue-yi smiled and shook hands with him, replying, "It doesn't matter if I'm young or not. What's important is whether the things in New Flyer are useful or not, right?" Viscount Ito O laughed and nodded. That's right. Chairman Sue is really a straightforward person, I like it very much. Chairman Sue, I hope that our cooperation will go smoothly." Sue-yi smiled and nodded. After greeting each other, both sides sat down. With the Marquis of Southgard taking the lead to chat for a while, they quickly got to the main topic. "Chairman Sue, today, the 3 of us are from the Logistics Department, the Staff Department, and the Intelligence Department. I think that you should be able to see how important your new flyer is to the Empire's Army headquarters. I hope that in today's conversation, Chairman Sue can show some sincerity." Viscount Ito O said. "The Principality of Constantine is over 2,000 kilometers away from here. If there wasn't any sincerity, why would I come all this way?" Sue-yi said with a faint smile. That's good." Viscount Ito O nodded lightly in approval. Viscount Ito gave a nod of approval. "Chairman Sue, since I spoke first, then let me express my intentions on behalf of the Logistics Department." Sue-yi made an inviting gesture. Ito O was silent for a bit before continuing. "What our logistics department cares about is different from the other people in the army headquarters. Compared to the military magic machines, we care more about things that can increase supplies. What I'm interested in the most are the large transport magic cars parked outside." Sue-yi revealed a smile, not feeling surprised at all. Compared to the traditional horse carriages, the transport magic cars had a clear advantage. Since the new flyer released the magic cars, it had only been 3 years. The Lampari Kingdom, the Principality of Constantine, the Kingdom of Ruhr, and the other surrounding countries already didn't have any horse carriages. Even if there were, most of them were used by people to reminisce about the past. For the nobles who loved horse carriages before, they had all changed to the more comfortable and faster magic sedans. As for transport, the Fersen Transport Chamber of Commerce that had completely changed to the transport magic cars had become the largest transport company in those countries. As for the other companies that needed transport, they had all changed from horse carriages to transport magic cars. Just last year, the Frestek Chamber of Commerce had sold 37,000 large transport magic cars and 52,000 medium transport magic cars. Rather, the sales of the small transport magic cars suited for household use were normal, only selling less than 10,000 units. But adding it all together, the new flyer had earned a large profit of over 1 million gold coins from the transport magic cars last year, which could be considered a very important source of profit for the new flyer. To be honest, although I hope that I can provide large amounts of large transport magic cars to your side, with the current road situation of your country, even if you have the large transport magic cars, it will be hard to display their full potential. Sui said. The Marquis of Southgard and the three of them looked at each other with a bit of awkwardness. Suyi's words were simply looking down on the Mala Empire, but they had nothing to say. Aitro's group of 3 had personally gone to the Mala Empire's southwest province to inspect the roads. After seeing how smooth the roads were, even they couldn't stand the bumpy roads in the Mala Empire, so how could they refute Sui? The Marquis of Southgard had already seen the benefits of roads in the Drake Duchy. Then he had personally experienced the large increase in traffic in the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, so he had a deeper understanding of this. He had already called for more roads in the Empire to improve the road situation, but he had never paid attention to it. Now that Sui had said this, he agreed in his heart, but he couldn't support him because of his face. As for paving roads, the Empire is actually very concerned about it, so Chairman Su doesn't need to worry. But this isn't related to what we're discussing today. Chairman Su, you should know that our logistics department needs to purchase these large transport magic cars to provide logistical support to the armies of the various regions. Since it's used by the army, it's impossible to guarantee that there will be roads connecting everywhere. So I want to ask, can the transport magic cars that your new flyer makes run on bad roads? Aitro asked. If you're talking about the large transport magic cars outside. Sui paused and slowly shook his head when he saw the concerned gazes of the 4. I'm very sorry, although these large transport magic cars can run on bad roads, they don't have powerful off-road abilities, so it's hard for them to meet your requirements. Is that so? Ito exhaled in disappointment. Aitro let out a sigh of disappointment. If it's like this, there are few places where these large transport magic cars can be used. After all, the Empire's army can appear on bad roads at any time. It's impossible for there to be roads. Sui revealed a faint smile before shaking his head. No, Viscount Aitro, I'm just saying that the large transport magic cars outside can't meet your requirements, but that doesn't mean that the other transport magic cars can't do the same. Aitro's eyes instantly lit up. You mean? Sui took out a document from his bag with a smile. Please take a look. This is the magic car that our company is currently developing that has powerful off-road abilities. I think that it should be able to meet your requirements of being able to run on bad roads. Chapter 878. While Aitro was carefully studying the documents on the side, the other 2 people from the army headquarters came to talk to Sui. Different from Aitro's specific request, the 2 officers from the intelligence department and the battle staff department told Sui that the army headquarters wanted to cooperate with New Flyer, saying that they needed to inspect the details before making a decision. But Baron Moff from the Battle Staff Department gave Sui a specific idea from the Army headquarters, which was that they hoped that New Flyer could provide more information on the military magic machines, making it easier for the Battle Staff Department to evaluate them. To put it simply, the Army headquarters wants to know the specific uses of the military magic machines produced by your company, as well as how powerful they are. Also, how easy it is to use them, how easy it is to maintain them, and other aspects. Only after knowing this can the Army headquarters decide if they want to import these military magic machines and how many they want to import. Chairman Su, do you understand what I mean? Su-yi gave a faint smile and said with a nod, of course, inspecting the goods is a necessary procedure, so it's very normal. How about this? I have 2 suggestions. 1. You can send some professionals to our new flyer to inspect the military magic machines and see how good they are. After all, just looking at the data won't give you any experience, right? This is our initial plan. Then what about the other suggestion? There's another suggestion. It's more direct than your own inspection. I can send a group of guards from our new flyer and show you the uses of these military magic machines. I think that this will give you a deeper understanding. Hearing Su-yi's words, Baron Moff and the intelligence department officer on the side couldn't help raising a brow as their expressions became a bit strange. This suggestion sounded very good, but the two of them felt a bit of contempt from Su-yi's tone, which made them feel a bit uncomfortable. Baron Moff was silent for a bit before saying, "How about this? The first suggestion was the Army headquarters plan. Now that Chairman Su has taken the initiative to propose it, it can be considered a preliminary agreement between us. We'll just discuss the details now. As for the second suggestion, I can't give you a reply now. After I report back, we'll let the higher-ups make a decision. Chairman Su, what do you think?" "Of course I have no problem. This is just a suggestion, the decision is in your hands." Su-yi gave a shrug as he said this with a relaxed look. Baron Moff and Su-yi reached an agreement, but the intelligence department officer didn't talk to Su-yi at all. After Baron Moff and Su-yi finished talking, he stood up and pulled Viscount Itro, who was studying on the side, as he left. Viscount Itro was immersed in the data, so he was a bit impatient. When he reacted and saw what the two of them were doing, he finally came back to his senses. But he wasn't in a rush to leave, rather he pointed at the data in his hand and asked Su-yi, "Chairman Su, this is a magic car that can easily run over mountains, when will it be made?" "It's still in the research stage, so I'm not certain when it will be made. But if your side has a large demand for this magic car, we might be able to make it ahead of time." Although Su-yi didn't say it, the meaning in his words couldn't be clearer. Of course the new flyer could make this magic car, but whether it was fast or slow, it would depend on whether it could make money. There was nothing wrong with this, so Itro nodded to show he understood. He pointed at the data in his hand before pointing at himself and looking at Su-yi. Su-yi spread his hand with a smile. "This data was prepared for your side." Itro took the data without any courtesy before turning to bid farewell to the Marquis of Southgard. "Chairman Su, you should be staying here for a few days this time, right?" Before leaving, Baron Moff asked Su-yi this. "Around a week." "All right, I hope that you can let Sir Marquis contact you at any time because we will be looking for you soon." "You're welcome at any time," Su-yi said with a smile. After the three left, the Marquis of Southgard didn't discuss the military magic machines with Su-yi at all, rather he directly pulled him to the magic machine industrial base on his territory. This new base already had 4 factories in operation. They were a steel mill that belonged to the New Flyer, a steel bar forging factory that belonged to the Ireland Chamber of Commerce, a cement processing factory that belonged to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, and a household magic machine assembly factory that belonged to a company in the Lampari Kingdom. Other than the household magic machine assembly factory of the small company, the other 3 factories were all used by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to pave roads in the Mala Empire. Because the Malar Empire hadn't decided to pave roads on a large scale, the output of these 3 factories were all used by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build high-rise apartments on the Marquis of Southgard's territory. When the Marquis of Southgard was inspecting the Lampari Kingdom and the Principality of Constantine, He saw these high-rise apartments built exclusively by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce in many cities, and was very fond of them. Therefore, when he invited the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build the road in the southwest province, he also invited the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build some similar apartments on his territory. It should be said that construction was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's main business, while road paving was a side business. Therefore, after accepting the job of building apartments on the Marquis of Southgard's territory, in less than a year, a total of 6 apartment buildings with 6 floors were erected on the territory. According to the plan, these 6 apartment buildings could accommodate 218 households. The Marquis of Southgard gave these apartments to his loyal subordinates as rewards, which was welcomed by everyone. For these people who could only live in normal wooden houses before, now that they could live in such a high place and have such a spacious, bright, and flat house, it was like they had come to another world. Because the apartments were well received, the Marquis of Southgard immediately gave an order to the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build 20 apartment buildings. At the same time, he accepted the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's proposal to build a villa area by the river on his territory. Now the cement, steel, and other products produced by these 3 factories were all used on the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's construction site. As for the household magic machine assembly factory, it could be considered a cooperation project between the New Flyer and the Lampuri Kingdom. This factory in name belonged to a magic machine company that wasn't that famous in the Lampari Kingdom, but this factory actually belonged to Queen Seveni. This factory would produce all the magic machines that all the magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom could produce, but during production, the magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom that participated in this cooperation would provide the parts and workers. In the end, the products would have the brands of these companies on them. To put it simply, these companies would move their equipment production lines here and create a large household magic machine assembly factory that could produce large amounts of household magic machines at the same time. The first benefit of this plan was that every household magic machine could be quickly assembled here, making it easy for the various magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom to enter the Mala Empire's market. The second benefit was that they only needed to assemble here, so they only needed to ship the parts from the Lampari Kingdom. Therefore, when they passed the border, they would have to pay much lower tariffs compared to the entire household magic machine, saving quite a bit of cost. As for the various household magic machines that New Flyer would produce, Sui wasn't worried about this because the Shinfei brand household magic machines were far above the other brands, so he didn't need to worry about the high-end market that belonged to them being stolen. Not to mention that he had already signed a supply agreement with several large nobles of the Mala Empire, including the Marquis of Southgard, involving over 300,000 Shinfei brand household magic machines. The total amount was over 1,000,000 gold coins, far surpassing the profits of this factory that hadn't been formed yet. The Marquis of Southgard came with Sui this time because he hoped that Sui could build a household magic machine factory that belonged to New Flyer on his territory. This was because the various Shinfei brand household magic machines that he had ordered from New Flyer were very popular among the nobles of the Mala Empire, allowing him to earn a profit of 130,000 gold coins in one go. The Marquis of Southgard was very clear that since Sui had come to the Mala Empire, New Flyer wouldn't always let him do the purchasing for them. Therefore, he hoped that New Flyer could build a factory on his territory. This was because according to the relevant tax laws of the Mala Empire, all industries on the private territory of nobles had to pay taxes to the nobles that they belonged to. If New Flyer built a factory here, then it would definitely provide a large amount of taxes for the Marquis of Southgard. The Marquis of Southgard pointed at the large open space in front of him and said to Sui, "You see, Chairman Su, if you build a factory here, the Empire won't levy additional taxes on you. And as the Overlord, I can guarantee that New Flyer will only levy the lowest tax rate. What do you think?" Sui revealed a smile and didn't comment on this. Of course, he was very clear about the Marquis of Southgard's thoughts, and he also agreed with what the Marquis of Southgard had just said. Building a factory here could save a lot of taxes, but there was one factor that made him worried. If a factory was built here, it would inevitably cause the relationship between New Flyer and the Marquis of Southgard to become extremely close. For New Flyer, who wanted to enter the Mala Empire, this was a good thing. But for the current New Flyer, it might not be a good thing. The reason was very simple. The private territory of the Marquis of Southgard was still too small. Chapter 879. A week later, Sui left the Mala Empire according to the plan. Leaving with him was a small delegation sent by the Mala Empire's army headquarters, which included the clerk of the logistics department, Viscount Itro, who he had met before. This delegation would follow Sui back to the Principality of Constantine to inspect the various military magic machines produced by the New Flyer, making a decision on whether to buy them or not. With the magic airship flying at high speeds, this group of people used just a single day to cross the distance of over 2,000 kilometers between the Malar Empire and the Principality of Constantine, arriving at the headquarters of the New Flyer. When they got off the magic airship, Itro, who was in charge of this delegation, let out a long sigh as he revealed a look of surprise. The people from the Malar Empire's army headquarters behind him were the same as him, revealing looks of surprise. It was clear that they were shocked by what they saw. Sui wasn't surprised at all. Almost all the people from other countries who came to the Principality of Constantine for the first time would have this kind of look, so he was already used to it. Everyone, this long journey must be very tiring. Please rest at the residences our company has prepared for everyone and we'll discuss business tomorrow, all right? Sui suggested. The people from the Malar Empire's army headquarters looked at each other before nodding. Although they had taken the magic airship the entire way and the journey had been very comfortable, it was still a long time, so it would be a lie to say that they weren't tired. The nominal leader Itro didn't have any objections to this, so he nodded in agreement. But after everyone was prepared, he grabbed Sui's arm and said in an excited voice, "Chairman Su, how about you take me to see the magic car you mentioned?" Sui looked at him in surprise. "You don't need to be in a rush, right? Moreover, this new magic car hasn't been developed yet, so you can't see anything about it." "It hasn't been developed yet, which means that a part of it has already been developed, right? Take me there." After reading the information, the entire logistics department is very interested in this thing. I can guarantee that as long as your New Flyer can really be manufactured, our logistics department will definitely place a large order with you. So, Chairman Su, for a big client like us, can't you give us some preferential treatment? Sui looked at Ito, rather speechlessly, wondering if this guy was also a hidden fanatic motorcycle fan. After thinking about it, Sui felt that it wouldn't affect him much, so he nodded and agreed. The two got into Sui's private magic sedan and quickly headed to the Magic Car Development Center in the northeast of the New Flyer base. When they came through the gate, there was a deep black magic sedan that quickly drove over. Then when it was about to hit Sui's magic sedan, it suddenly came to a stop. When it stopped, the front of the car was less than half a meter away from the front of Sui's magic sedan, which was a very dangerous situation. Ito, sitting in the passenger seat, had a pale face, but Sui acted like he was used to this and didn't have a strange expression at all. He just rolled his eyes before sticking his head out the window and shouting, "Grandfather, can't you drive a bit slower?" A white-haired head popped out of the magic sedan's window and glared at Sui before saying with a cold snort, "What are you afraid of? Could it be that you're worried that I'll hit someone?" "I'm not worried that you'll hit someone, but you're always like this, it's very scary, alright?" Sui snappily said. "Huh? Could it be that you're scared? What a joke." Instructor Carmilla, who stuck her head out, had a look of disdain. After looking over, her eyes fell onto Ito-Oh beside Sue and she revealed a look of understanding. So there's a guest, what? Where did he come from? This is a guest from the Malur Empire. This is his first time here, so I don't want him to be scared. Sue explained. From the Malur Empire? Instructor Carmilla looked at Ito-Oh again before suddenly saying, Hey, you can have that kid Sue bring you here, so your status in the Malur Empire shouldn't be low, right? Do you know Archmagus Alasta? How has he been recently? Archmagus Alasta? Ito-Oh looked at Instructor Carmilla in surprise. As if he thought of something, his expression became very respectful. Could it be that Your Excellency is Instructor Carmilla? I am Carmilla. You know me, so you should know Archmagus Alasta. Tell me, how is he now? Instructor Carmilla kept asking. Knowing that the other side was the most important Instructor Carmilla in the Principality of Constantine, Ito-Oh immediately opened the door and walked over. He respectfully gave Instructor Carmilla a bow before replying, My status isn't high enough to know the Honorable Archmagus Alasta, but I've heard that Archmagus Alasta has been focused on studying some kind of magic, so there hasn't been any other news. That fellow has always been like this, so it isn't strange. Instructor Carmilla thought for a bit before waving her hand at Ito-Oh. Alright, you and that kid Sue can go do whatever you need to do, I won't keep you. After saying this, Instructor Carmilla started the magic sedan and instantly disappeared into the distance. Ito-Oh was in a daze as he watched the magic sedan disappear into the distance. He was in a daze for a while until Sue drove the magic sedan to his side and signaled for him to get in. Chairman Sue, Instructor Carmilla seems to like driving magic sedans? Ito-Oh asked after getting in the car. Sue laughed. He doesn't just like driving magic sedans, he also likes driving magic speedboats and magic airships. In short, he likes anything that is fast. What? You think it's strange? No, it's not strange. It's just that thinking that an honorable Archmagus like him would like to do these things really is a bit unexpected. Sue laughed. If you knew that Instructor Carmilla often went to race cars, wouldn't you find it even more unexpected? But compared to Ito-Oh's question, Sue cared more about Archmagus Alastar that Instructor Carmilla mentioned. Based on Instructor Carmilla's tone, it seemed like she had a good relationship with Archmagus Alastar, otherwise she wouldn't casually mention him in front of Ito-Oh. It would be great if Grandfather could also bring this Archmagus Alastar to our new flyer. This thought flashed in Sue's mind before he gave a self-deprecating laugh and shook his head to throw it away. Archmagi were people with the highest status in the Malur Empire. How could they come to work in New Flyer? So this was just wishful thinking. After starting the magic sedan again, Sue drove Ito-Oh to the Magic Car Development Center and came to a small hill to the north. This small hill was very different from the surrounding area, like it was specially left here. In this small hill, there were 5 magic cars that looked like large transport magic cars slowly moving through the hills. The slopes of these hills were different and the ground was uneven. There were even stones of different sizes that looked very hard to pass through. Ito-Oh took a look and was certain that in this environment, if a path wasn't specially opened, it was impossible for traditional horse carriages to pass through. Although the 5 magic cars that were moving through the hills were slow and seemed a bit strenuous, they were still moving very steadily. Ito-Oh's eyes lit up. Chairman Sue, these are off-road vehicles? It's still being tested, so you can't see everything. When the 4-wheel drive system matures, they can go faster on these roads. Sue explained. No, this is more than enough. Ito-Oh said excitedly. Ito-Oh said in an excited voice, Chairman Sue, they aren't loaded yet, right? They haven't reached the limit yet, so they aren't. Then if they are loaded with cargo, how much can they load and still be able to climb up like this? Ito-Oh asked. According to the data, the lowest requirement we can give is that it won't be affected by 5 tons of cargo. Sui replied. Of course, the maximum load of these large transport magic cars on flat ground is 20 tons, so they can't reach that for now. 5 tons is more than enough. The excitement in Ito O's eyes was not concealed at all. Ito O's excitement couldn't be hidden. Chairman Su, please sell these 5 magic cars to me. I want to bring them back to the Empire and use them to shut some people up. Sui couldn't help smiling, thinking that this Ito O really was straightforward. It was a pity that he was just a normal clerk in the Malor Empire's army headquarters. He couldn't decide many things. But thinking about it, although he seemed like a normal clerk on the surface, since he could become the leader of this delegation and represent the Malor Empire's army headquarters logistics department on this inspection, it could be seen that his position wasn't low. If he could establish a good relationship with him, it would be easier to sell to the Malor Empire's army headquarters. However, after Sui paused, he shook his head and said, "I'm very sorry, these 5 magic cars are experimental models, they can't be sold." "Is that so?" Ito O was somewhat disappointed. Ito O was a bit disappointed. Without a real example, it would be a bit hard to convince them. If you want to give evidence, you don't need a real object, right? Sui revealed a faint smile and reached out his hand to invite Ito O. "Viscount Ito O, if you're interested, please come with me. I will show you a demonstration video of the new off-road transport magic cars. After watching this video, I believe that you'll have a better understanding of their abilities." Demonstration video? Ito O was a bit confused. "Alright, perhaps I should say magic illusion video, that way it'll be easier for you to understand," Sui said with a smile. Magical illusion movie? Ito O was still confused. Chapter 880. Finished showing the guest? Hearing Sui's footsteps, Mentor Carmilla asked without raising her head. "Yes, I just finished," Sui replied. He saw that Mentor Carmilla was holding a long, thin metal tool with a light blue magic light at the front. She was concentrating on the 2 steel plates on the table, so he tactfully shut his mouth. As soon as the magic light at the front of the tool approached the 2 steel plates, the surface of the steel plates near the gap in the middle suddenly seemed to melt, and then fuse together without any barrier. After a moment, Mentor Carmilla picked up the tool, and the 2 steel plates had been perfectly joined together. Except for a faint trace on the surface, it was as if they were originally one piece of steel plate. Sui said in surprise, "Grandpa, it seems that your welding skills have improved again." Mentor Carmilla threw down the tool in her hand and picked up the steel plates that were joined together. She first looked carefully at the magic lamp in the room, then knocked on it with her hand. Only then did she nod in satisfaction and put the steel plates back on the table. She coldly snorted and said, "Nonsense, if I didn't make any progress after researching for so long, what would be the point?" Sui smiled and also picked up the steel plate to examine it. He found that after this steel plate had been welded, not only did it look like it was joined together on the outside, but it also fused perfectly on the inside, leaving no gap in the middle. This kind of welding was truly useful, and it was also the most advanced welding technology that New Flyer needed to make large magic machines. "Grandpa, this is the new magic welding torch you've developed, right? Are there any special requirements to master it?" Sui picked up the long metal tool in Mentor Carmilla's hand and asked, "What special requirements can there be?" Mentor Carmilla rolled her eyes at Sui. "This thing was developed so that even ordinary people can use it. If there were special requirements, why would I develop it? Don't worry, this thing can be mastered as long as you spend a little time learning. But as for the specific welding technology, this also depends on the talent and understanding of each welder. I can't guarantee anything. Yes, as long as ordinary people can use it. As a welder, there are also tests." Sui nodded, feeling very satisfied in his heart. Instructor Carmilla's magic welding technology didn't seem that remarkable, but it was actually the foundation for most of the magic machines in New Flyer. Without welding, it would be impossible to create many large-scale magic machines. Even if it was possible, there would be many restrictions. So since Mentor Carmilla invented the magic welding technology and the magic welding gun, New Flyer's large-scale magic machines finally appeared. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this most basic technology was enough to raise the standards of the entire science magic industry to a whole new level. "Alright, kid, don't beat around the bush. What do you want from me?" Mentor Carmilla suddenly asked. "Grandpa, you know me best." Sue chuckled. "I came to find you mainly to ask about the archmage, Alasta, you mentioned before." "What? Kid, you want to pull him into the company to work for you?" Mentor Carmilla looked at Sue with a bit of ridicule in her eyes. "Is that possible?" Sue asked back. "Nonsense, of course it's impossible." Mentor Carmilla gave a firm denial. "He is one of the 9 archmages of the Mallow Empire. Do you think that he would work for your small company?" Sue blinked and decided to give up on the nonsense of saying, "You are also an archmagus. Aren't you working for our small company?" Then, "Grandpa, you seem to have a good relationship with him. Can you contact him and have him work with our company on some magic research?" Sue asked. This. Mentor Carmilla thought for a bit before slightly knitting her brows. If it was before, it wouldn't be possible. But now, I can't say for sure. There might be some hope. Then, Mentor Carmilla glanced at Sue. "I don't need you to say that. Why do you think I asked that guy about Alasta?" Sue's heart was filled with a bit of emotion. Even when Mentor Carmilla was prejudiced against magic machines, she was still very supportive of him. Afterwards, she threw away these prejudices and joined the New Flyer. After participating in magic machine-related research, she was always thinking about him and the New Flyer. There were many times when the Frestec Chamber of Commerce relied on his large signboard to support them, otherwise they would have met several times more problems. Thinking of this, Sue immediately said, "Grandpa, I don't need you to convince Archmage Alasta. I only need you to contact him and give me a chance to explain to him. As for how to convince him to work with our company, you don't need to worry about that." "Che, could it be that you think I care that much?" Mentor Carmilla gave a laugh. She turned to touch a small cabinet behind her and took out a letter, giving it to Sue. "Take it, this is my personal letter. If you have a chance to go to the Mallow Empire in the future, you can use this letter to see him. Alasta was a student of the same school as me, and our relationship has always been good. You should be able to see him easily with my letter." Seeing that Mentor Carmilla had even prepared a letter ahead of time, Sue was even more moved. He reached out to take the letter and wanted to say some words of gratitude, but when the words reached his mouth, they changed. "Grandpa, that person was sent by the Mallow Empire's army headquarters. He is very interested in the off-road magic cars. I had him watch the demonstration video Steele's group made, and he was very satisfied. If nothing unexpected happens, the Mallow Empire's army headquarters shouldn't have a problem with the off-road magic cars." "Oh? Steele is finally working with you? You've done quite well on this, I'm very satisfied." Mentor Carmilla gave a nod. "I thought that since she was married, she should stay at home. But she was willing to go out and find things to do, and you supported her, so I couldn't say anything about her. Now that the two of you have thought it through, it's very good." Sue laughed as he felt a warm feeling in his heart. "Grandpa, we are husband and wife in the end. It's good that we can support each other and spend more time together." Mentor Carmilla gave a cold snort. "What more time together? You just came back from the Mallow Empire, and she ran off to the kingdom of Ruhr. Have you been together for more than a week this month?" Sue awkwardly rubbed his nose. After all, everyone is busy, so there's no other way. Mentor Carmilla looked at Sue for a while before giving a sigh. She waved her hand and her tone was a bit bleak. Forget it, this is a matter between the two of you. It's fine as long as you feel there's no problem. I'm too lazy to care that much. If I have time to care about you, I might as well play with Freya. Hearing Mentor Carmilla mention Freya, Sui couldn't help rolling his eyes. Mentor Carmilla doted on her great-granddaughter Freya very much. There were many times when Steele couldn't stand it. However, every time he wanted to teach Freya a lesson, he would always be scolded by Mentor Carmilla. This gave Sui a headache, and he was always worried that Freya would be spoiled because of this. However, Freya was already 6 years old this year. Although she was a bit naughty, overall she was very lively, cute, obedient and sensible. She didn't look like a spoiled brat, which made Sui feel a lot more at ease. Of course, to say something proud, this was also due to him and Steele's strict education of Freya. Alright, let's not talk about these things. Sui, this time you brought the people from the Mala Empire's military back. Are you planning to sell the military magic machines to the Mala Empire? Mentor Carmilla asked again. Yes. That's my plan. Then what about the Canla Empire? Aren't you going to sell to them? Sui looked deeply at Mentor Carmilla and calmly replied. If it's a normal situation, I shouldn't sell to them because we're actually in a hostile relationship. But grandfather, you should be very clear that since I want to sell the military magic machines to the Mala Empire, then I have to sell to the Canla Empire. A trace of admiration flashed through Mentor Carmilla's eyes and she nodded. It's good that you know. But Sui, do you know that the method you've chosen is very dangerous? Compared to the Canla Empire and the Mala Empire, whether it's the Principality of Constantine or the New Flyer, they're currently too weak. If you're not careful, you might waste all your previous efforts. Sui revealed a confident smile. Don't worry, grandfather. Didn't you tell me to be more straightforward last time? Although what I'm doing now is as dangerous as playing with fire, there won't be any problems. In the end, the most important thing is still in my hands. The two empires won't be able to shake my foundation. It's good to have confidence, but it's not good to overdo it. I still have to remind you to be more careful. If you fail, losing the New Flyer is a small matter, but if something happens to you, that's a big matter. I don't want to see Steele become a widow, do you understand? Sui laughed involuntarily. Grandfather, aren't you looking down on me too much? No matter what, I'm at least an archmage. It shouldn't be a problem for me to protect my own life, right? Do you think archmages are invincible? Mentor Carmilla glared at Sui. Of course I'm not invincible in front of you, but at least I'm invincible in front of most people on this continent. Sui explained helplessly. What's more, I've prepared a lot of backup plans. Even if the entire signs is destroyed, it doesn't mean that there's no place for me and the entire New Flyer. Chapter 881. There was a black line that appeared at the end of the horizon. Sir Leslie, we're about to arrive at Paradise Island. Prepare to land. Leslie put down the telescope in his hand and nodded to his subordinates before giving this order. The sailors on the guard ships immediately began to work. After around half an hour, 15 guard ships and 2 large transport magic ships arrived at the harbor that had been built half a year ago on Paradise Island. The residents of the island saw this fleet approaching from afar, but they didn't reveal any surprised or panicked expressions. Rather, they all excitedly rushed to the harbor with expectant looks as they prepared to welcome them. This fleet that was said to have come from the distant signs had come to Paradise Island several times in the past year, so the residents of the island were already used to it. Moreover, this fleet would bring many new things each time. For example, the specialties of the signs, the rare resources of the island, and the strange but useful magic machines. When they sold these precious items to the residents of the island, they didn't need the gold coins that could be used everywhere. They just needed to exchange for some common herbs and ores from the residents of Paradise Island. At the same time, Even this strangely wide harbor that had 10 piers was built by the new flyer that this fleet belonged to. When building this harbor, the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce had hired a large number of islanders to help build it. They had also given them a high wage of 5 gold coins a month, allowing these islanders to earn a small amount. So to the residents of the island, the new flyer and this fleet were simply angels that came from the heavens, bringing them all kinds of benefit. Of course they would be filled with anticipation and welcome each time this fleet came. As soon as the fleet docked at the port, countless residents immediately swarmed over. However, the first ones to come out of the guard ships were a group of fully armed soldiers that looked very strong. The residents of the island weren't surprised by this because according to the people in the fleet, sailing on the endless seas was very dangerous. They would meet pirates at any time, so it was natural for them to be armed. However, the residents of the island noticed that the number of guards coming down from the frigate this time seemed to be much more than usual. In the past, when the fleet came, there would only be 100 guards coming down from above. This time, there were 400 to 500 people coming down in succession. By the time they got down to the open space of the port and lined up in a formation, they looked like a black mass, and their aura was quite shocking. Of course, when they turned their heads and saw that there were many more large steel ships outside the port than usual, they felt relieved. This time, the size of the fleet was much larger, so it was not surprising that the number of guards needed would increase as well. But at the same time, everyone was also very curious. Why did the fleet suddenly become so large? They even brought 2 large transport magic ships that hadn't been seen in a long time? Could it be that, this time, the new flyer was going to do something on the island? Thinking back to the last time such a large fleet appeared, it was during the construction of the port, everyone couldn't help but feel excited. If it was like this, didn't that mean that they would have a chance to work for the new flyer and earn a bit of money? Thinking of this, the islanders became even more excited. Without waiting for the crew to come down, they all came forward. If it wasn't for the guards coming down ahead of time stopping them, they would have already charged onto the ship. When everyone saw Leslie come down from the deck, they immediately broke out in cheers. Leslie raised his hand to greet the islanders on the pier, which caused them to respond even more loudly. "Hey, these fellows really are simple." Leslie revealed a faint smile. He stepped onto the pier and walked to the boxes that the guards had already set up. He bent his legs and jumped onto them. Seeing him like this, the surrounding islanders became even more excited. Last time when the new flyer announced that they were going to build the port and recruit workers, this Sir Leslie had also stood up like this and made his announcement. Now that he was in the same position, he must be announcing the same thing. The islanders on the pier surged forward like a tide, surrounding Leslie in the middle. Seeing everyone gather around him, Leslie raised his hands and the surrounding noise quickly stopped as everyone's eyes fell onto him. "Everyone, I have good news for everyone. This time we're planning to open a magic machine component processing factory on the island, as well as a steel mill and a mine, so we're planning to recruit around 2,000 workers." Hearing this, the crowd suddenly burst into an unusually loud exclamation. Recruiting 2,000 workers? God, there were only 20 to 30,000 people on Paradise Island, and this new flyer wanted to recruit a tenth of that. Putting aside the children and old people who didn't have much labor, this meant that of the 10,000 people on the island, many of them would be able to obtain good jobs that paid at least 5 gold coins a month. Moreover, from Sir Leslie's tone, he could tell that the 2 unknown factories and the mine weren't short-term projects like the port, but rather long-term projects. This also meant that as long as the people on the island had the chance to work here, they would be able to obtain a long-term stable income. This was simply the greatest good news for the islanders who could only rely on the resources of the island. Although gold coins didn't have much meaning to Paradise Island that was cut off from the rest of the world, Now that the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce's fleet frequently came and transported goods from the Signs continent, gold coins were quite useful. For example, a magic fan that could bring a cool breeze to people on a hot summer day would cost 3 gold coins to buy. If it was before, the people on the island would have to gather large amounts of herbs to barely exchange for one. But if they could obtain this job now, they could even buy one a month. "Sir Leslie, I want to sign up." There was a loud shout that came from the crowd. The crowd was silent for a bit before they all shouted in unison. Everyone raised their arms, trying to attract Leslie's attention. Leslie raised his arms again and signaled for everyone to be silent. "Everyone, please listen up. As for the specific recruitment of workers, we will open the recruitment after the factories and mines have been built. But before that, we need to first build the 2 factories and mines, which will require a large amount of manpower. Those who are willing to help us build the 2 factories and mines, please come to the recruitment office later to sign up. We will recruit the best based on the situation, understood?" Leslie's words were very clear, and adding in the fact that they had similar experiences before, the surrounding people easily accepted this arrangement. After this matter was announced, they entered into the trade that both sides were already familiar with. Leslie had led such a large fleet this time, so naturally he had brought all kinds of resources from the Signs continent. The residents of the island had been working hard to gather the herbs, ores, and other things that the Fresteck Chamber of Commerce had bought before. Both sides began to barter at the port, and the scene became extremely lively for a while. Leslie watched this scene from afar and couldn't help shaking his head. Paradise Island was alone in the sea, and had been separated from the Signs for too long. Even the most basic currency had disappeared, so they could only use this kind of primitive method of exchange. It seemed like if he wanted to develop this place into a reliable backup base, he would need to spend quite a bit of effort. When Leslie was thinking about his future plans, a subordinate suddenly came over and said to him in a low voice, "Sir, there's movement over there." Leslie raised his brows and waved his hand at his subordinate. "Send down the order, follow the plan." "Yes." The subordinate left with this order. Leslie continued to stay in the shadows by the dock. After silently waiting for around 10 minutes, he heard the low sounds of the ground shaking in the distance. "They're here." Leslie turned his head to look at the island and saw a group of black figures charging over in the distance. The islanders who were currently trading with the sailors of the fleet heard the sound behind them. When they turned to look, their expressions all changed. "The royal family is here! My God! Why are they here? What are they here for? Could it be they?" A moment later, the group of people ran to the edge of the beach. Could be seen that this group of people were all wearing the same style of clothing and holding all kinds of iron weapons in their hand. Although their formation was scattered and their bodies were not uniform, it could be seen that they had more or less received a certain amount of training. They could be called an armed force. Among these people, one could also see a simple carriage pulled by 2 horses. Sitting in the carriage was a middle-aged fat man with a big belly. He was like a mountain of meat piled up inside. There was a particularly large crown on his head. Almost his entire face was buried in it, and it was impossible to see his face clearly. After those people stopped, a man walked out. Looking at the situation on the beach, he loudly shouted, "What are all these people gathered here for? Do you want to cause trouble?" The islanders on the beach all stopped what they were doing and looked at each other. Then they all turned their heads and looked at Leslie, who had been sitting on the beach without moving the entire time. "It's time for me to make a move." Leslie revealed a faint smile. He stood up and walked over to the group with a relaxed look on his face. Chapter 882. Everyone on the beach had their eyes on Leslie as they watched him stop in front of the soldiers that had suddenly appeared. "Who are you?" The man who had shouted earlier looked at Leslie with a frown. Leslie looked at him and ignored him as he turned to look at the mountain of meat on the horse carriage. May I ask if you are His Majesty King Antier? Roshan's eyes, which were almost completely covered by the fat on his face, opened two slits and glanced at Zhang Lixing. Who are you? Hello, Your Majesty King Antier. I am the leader of this fleet from Signs. I came this time to do some small business with the residents of Paradise Island. This time, the mountain of meat called King Antier gave a soft snort. This isn't your first time here, right? The corners of Leslie's mouth rose slightly, revealing a cold smile. This King Antier in front of him was the current ruler of Paradise Island. According to the information provided by the residents of the island, they had also come here from Signs a long time ago. It was said that they were the royal family of a certain empire in Signs, so there were quite a few guards that came with them. Relying on this power, the so-called royal family of Antier had been firmly controlling the entire Paradise Island all these years, and almost all the resources on the island were in their hands. Although this island was very big, there was no power that could fight against the Antier royal family. So even if they had been tyrannical on this island for over 1,000 years, no one dared to go against them. But now that he had personally seen this king, Leslie's heart was filled with ridicule. Based on his appearance, it was true that he had unparalleled power on Paradise Island, but what tyrannical power? As a king, he could only sit in this kind of tattered horse carriage. Even the two horses pulling the carriage were so weak, it could be seen that his living conditions weren't that good. Of course, compared to the poor lives of the other residents on the island, this king could at least feed himself this well, showing that he was living a good life. This isn't our first time here, what about it? Your Majesty, is there a problem? Leslie asked back. You dare ask me if there's a problem? King Antier gave a snort and then took a deep breath. As if he was a bit tired, he pointed at the man who was responsible for shouting. That man immediately continued, Do you still not understand? This is Paradise Island. Since you're here, you have to follow the rules of Paradise Island. Then what are the rules of Paradise Island? Leslie asked with a smile. Nonsense. The rules of the island is that His Majesty the King is the greatest. You fellows came here to do business with the people of the island. Did you inform His Majesty ahead of time and obtain His Majesty's permission? I really don't have that, Leslie admitted very quickly before turning to look at King Antier. Then Your Majesty, how can we obtain your permission? King Antier opened his eyes with difficulty and gave a soft snort. He then closed his eyes again, as if he was too lazy to care about Leslie. Look, you're a smart person and you came from the Signs continent, so don't you know the rules of each country on the Signs continent? Pay taxes. There's no problem if you want to do business on the island, but if you don't pay taxes, don't even think about it. Leslie laughed. Then what if I don't want to pay? Don't want to pay? The man gave a cold snort and raised his right hand. The 200 large men surrounding him and King Antier of Paradise Island all raised their weapons and pointed them at Leslie. Leslie looked at them with a face filled with contempt. He shook his head and said, Your Majesty, it seems like you don't understand the current situation at all. After throwing down these words, Leslie also raised his right hand and several hundred figures appeared on the beach, instantly surrounding the 200 people King Antier of Paradise Island brought. The people surrounded were stunned. King Antier of Paradise Island couldn't help straightening his body. He opened his eyes wide with difficulty as he stared at Leslie and shouted, What do you want to do? Do you want to rebel? Rebel? Leslie couldn't help smiling. Your Majesty, it seems like not only do you need to lose some weight, you should also study more. The word rebel can't be used in this situation. You, King Antier of Paradise Island, wanted to say something, but as soon as he opened his mouth, Leslie suddenly raised his right hand and quickly fell down. So, an arrow flew through the air and accurately pierced King Antier of Paradise Island's throat. It went deep in, and only the tail of the arrow was left outside. King Antier of Paradise Island only moved his fingers, and the upper half of his body that had just straightened up fell down. He slammed into the horse carriage, and made a large sound before not moving at all. The beach instantly fell into a deathly silence. After a while, the man who had given the order for King Antier of Paradise Island shouted out in a loud voice with a look of horror. "Heavens above! Quickly kill him!" So, another arrow flew over and pierced his throat with the same accuracy, causing the latter half of his sentence to be stuck in his throat. This man lasted a bit longer than King Antier of Paradise Island, but he could only cover his neck with his hand, and let out a few groans before falling down. King Antier of Paradise Island, who had been a bit restless, all stopped what they were doing. They all stared in a daze at King Antier of Paradise Island, who had lost his life, and the man on the ground. After a while, it was unknown who shouted out, and they all scattered. However, they didn't run far before several red lights flew over their heads and fell onto the ground in front of them. Hong, 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 hong. Intense explosions rang out, followed by strong shock waves and dirt flying all over the sky. The scattered people were all stunned on the spot, not daring to move at all. This island is not as big as you think, so don't think about running away. All of you stay here and listen to my orders. Perhaps I can leave you with your lives, otherwise. Leslie's cold voice came from the distance. The subordinates of King Antier of Paradise Island looked at each other before suddenly turning around and kneeling down in front of Leslie. "Your Majesty the King." Perhaps infected by these cries, the islanders on the beach who had been in a sluggish state because of the sudden change in front of them also reacted. They also knelt down in the direction of Leslie. "Your Majesty the King." Looking at the kneeling crowd around him, the corners of Leslie's mouth raised into a smile. He turned his head and looked in the northwest direction. "So, if I want to solve this quickly, I still need to use some thunderous means. If it was Sue who was too soft-hearted, I don't know how long it would take." ####achoo. Sue sneezed heavily. He couldn't help but rub his nose. He was a little puzzled. Ever since he became a great magician, he had never caught a cold in the past few years. Why did he suddenly sneeze? Is it because I looked up at the sun just now? Sue knit his brows as he looked up at the sun hanging in the sky. He felt that the early spring sun wasn't that strong even at noon, so it shouldn't be enough to make him sneeze. "Chairman Sue, are those magic airships the same as the one we rode before?" Itro beside him saw Sue suddenly turn to look at the sky and followed his gaze. He saw several magic airships flying in the sky. Right, these are the first-generation magic airships, there's only one model." Sue replied. "First generation?" Itro narrowed his eyes and followed the magic airships for a while. When they disappeared into the horizon, he turned back to Sue and seriously asked, "Chairman Sue, are you selling these magic airships?" "What? You also want to buy them?" "Of course." Ito nodded with great certainty. Itro gave a certain nod, "Although I know that these things are more expensive than the large transport magic cars and they can't carry more cargo, just based on the fact that they can fly in the sky, it is enough for them to play an unimaginable role in many situations. Tell me, is your company willing to sell them?" "If possible, of course I want to sell them." Sue gave a sigh before helplessly spreading his hands. "It's a pity that our company doesn't have a high production capacity for the magic airships. Up to now, we can only produce less than 30 a year, so I'm afraid we don't have any extra for you right now." "Is that so? That's really disappointing." The disappointment on Itro's face was clear. He unwillingly turned to look in the direction the magic airships had disappeared in, and after thinking about it, he asked, "Then Chairman Sue, can you sell us at least 10? "Oh no, 5 is fine. Your company can make 30 a year, so it shouldn't be a problem to sell 5 to us, right? I can promise you on behalf of the logistics department that we will definitely give you a satisfactory price." You really want it that much? Su-e was a bit surprised by Itro's insistence. Yes. Ito-o was unusually certain. Itro was certain. No matter what, I asked Chairman Su to at least give me a demonstration video of the magic airships so that I can bring it back to the high-level members of the Army headquarters. I'm certain that they will agree with my opinion. Su-e thought for a bit before nodding. Alright, if your side is really interested, I can give you several magic airships as a reference. But this isn't part of our company's plans, so as for the price. Chairman Su, you don't need to worry about the price. Our Malur Empire's Army headquarters has plenty of budget. As long as the generals of the Army headquarters like it, there won't be a problem at all. Su-e laughed. Alright, then it's decided. When you go back, I'll give you a demonstration video. If your side really decides to buy it, we'll discuss the next step. What do you think? Alright, no problem. Having inadvertently made another business deal, Su-e was in a very good mood. Although the new flyer was limited by their production capacity, so they couldn't even complete the order of 100 magic airships for the Lampari Kingdom, with his relationship with Seveni, as long as they discussed it, they should be able to squeeze out a few for the Malur Empire. He was certain that the Malur Empire definitely wouldn't let go of the magic airships that represented the most advanced magic machine technology. As long as the generals of the Malur Empire's army headquarters saw the demonstration video, the new flyer would definitely receive endless orders from the Malur Empire. When he was about to lead Itro to the shipyard, a subordinate of the new flyer quickly came over. He first looked at Itro with a complicated look before looking at Su-e. Sorry. Su-e understood and apologized to Itro before walking to the side with his subordinate. Sir Chairman, something happened. The subordinate came to Su-e's ear and said in a low voice with an anxious look. What happened? Su-e wasn't surprised as he asked back with a calm look. The subordinate looked at Itro in the distance before continuing. The people His Highness Frank sent just arrived and they met the people from the Malur Empire. Now they. In short, the situation isn't good. The people from the Kanla Empire are also here? Su-e was surprised, thinking that this really was unexpected. After thinking about it, he walked over to Itro. Viscount Itro, there are some guests here. How about we go and see them together? Itro looked at Su-e in surprise. The guests from the new flyer, what did Su-e want him to see? Could it be that it was related to him? Chapter 883. Under the guidance of his subordinate, Su-e and Ito-o arrived at a reception center set up in the center of the new flyer's main base. As soon as they entered, Su-e immediately felt that the atmosphere in the air seemed to have stagnated in an instant. The huge reception center hall was unbelievably quiet. Even the extremely soft footsteps of the two female attendants could be heard clearly. Other than the two attendants who were still walking around, almost no one in the hall made any big movement. No matter what they did, they all had a cautious look, as if they were afraid to break the dead atmosphere. Everyone's gazes intentionally or unintentionally fell on the two groups of people sitting across from each other in the hall. However, the gazes of these two groups of people were firmly fixed on the opposite side. Even if they didn't feel it, they could easily smell the strong smell of gunpowder mixed within. Ito-o frowned and glanced at the two groups of people. His gaze fell on the group of people on the left, who were the representatives of the Malur Empire's military that he was leading this time. He walked over and whispered a few words, then turned to look at the group of people opposite him with a strange expression. After seeing Ito-o's action, the group of people on the right finally noticed the arrival of Su-e and the others. One of the people sitting in the middle raised his hand to greet Su-e. Chairman Su, you're back. Su-e smiled and nodded at him. Sir Russell, didn't you say that you would arrive the day after tomorrow? Why are you here today? The Deputy Chief of Staff of the Kanla Empire's Naval Staff, Russell, glanced at the people from the Malur Empire's military sitting opposite him and snorted coldly. If we didn't come 2 days in advance, how would we have discovered these unexpected guests? His tone was full of sarcasm. From his expression, it could be seen that he must be quite dissatisfied and even angry. However, Sue-yi did not seem to understand the meaning behind his words at all. He continued to maintain his smile and took 2 steps forward. He came to the middle of the 2 groups of people and extended his left hand to the people of the Malur Empire. "Come, let me introduce you. These are the guests from the Malur Empire." Luo Su snorted softly. "Chairman Su, there's no need for you to introduce him. They are all from the Malur Empire's military. How could I not know?" Sue turned to look at Ito. "Oh, then shouldn't you know these guests?" Ito frowned and looked at Sue with some confusion, but he still nodded and said, "Of course, these people didn't deliberately hide their identities. If we still can't recognize them, then it's too unreasonable. Am I right? Respected Canla Empire's Fox of the Forest, Lord Russell?" "Fox of the Forest?" Sue looked at Russell in surprise. "Lord Russell, I didn't expect you to have such a nickname." Russell waved his hand. "That's just a nickname given to me by others. It's nothing." "Lord Russell, it's not right to be so modest." Ito raised his voice. "When you were still working for the Canla Empire's army, our Malur Empire had suffered many losses under your hands. Giving you such a nickname is out of respect for you. If you think this is nothing, then isn't our Malur Empire's military too shameful? What does your Malur Empire's military think have anything to do with me?" Russell said expressionlessly. "Besides, I have now been transferred to the Empire's navy. The nickname, Fox of the Forest, has nothing to do with me." "That's really a pity." Ito shook his head. "The Canla Empire's military did not use such a powerful jungle warfare master like you and transferred you to the navy. It's simply stupid." Luo Su was silent and didn't refute. From this reaction, perhaps he agreed with Ito's words. But because of his status, he obviously could not say anything. "All right, Sir Russell, no matter what you did before, since you're here now, if my guesses aren't wrong, you should be here for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's military magic machines, right?" Ito asked. "This has nothing to do with you." Russell responded indifferently. "No, of course it has something to do with me. Or rather, it has something to do with our entire Malur Empire." Saying this, Ito turned to look at Sue, his eyes revealing a trace of questioning. "Chairman Su, Lord Russell is unwilling to say. Are you willing to tell me?" Sue shrugged. "Sorry, protecting the privacy of our customers is our duty. Without the consent of our customers, I can't reveal it to others." Ito nodded gently. "Okay, I understand." After that, he turned his head and looked deeply at Russell. Then, he turned to the Malur Empire's military and said goodbye to Sue. After they left the reception center, Russell stared at Sue and asked in a deep voice, "Chairman Su, can you tell me what is going on?" Sue smiled and replied, "As you can see, this is what happened." Russell's eyes narrowed slightly. A dangerous light flashed through his eyes. However, he did not continue to ask. ####2 days later, Ito left the Principality of Constantine with the Malur Empire's military delegation and returned to the Malur Empire. In his last conversation with Sue, he revealed to Sue that if there were no accidents, the Malur Empire's military would order a large number of military magic machines from New Flyer that were currently sold by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce. At the same time, they also hoped to establish a long-term cooperation with New Flyer to guarantee the supply of military magic machines. At the same time, he also expressed a little dissatisfaction to Sue. That was, while New Flyer was cooperating with the Malur Empire, they were still cooperating with the Canla Empire. He warned Sue that New Flyer's actions were very likely to cause the Malur Empire's military to distrust New Flyer. This could affect the confidence of the Mala Empire's military to cooperate with New Flyer. 4 days after sending off the Mala Empire's military delegation, Sui also sent off the Kanla Empire's naval delegation led by Russell. The purpose of Russell's visit this time was very simple. He only hoped to purchase 10 more corvettes and various military magic machines from New Flyer. At the same time, the Kanla Empire's naval delegation also hoped that New Flyer could provide them with further technical information regarding the corvette. This would make it easier for them to carry out the later maintenance of the corvettes and carry out more training programs. However, after seeing the Mala Empire's military delegation with his own eyes, Russell specially looked for Sui and had a private meeting with him. In this meeting, Russell solemnly expressed to Sui that because the Mala Empire and the Kanla Empire were enemies, he and the Kanla Empire's military did not want to see New Flyer cooperate with the Mala Empire. If New Flyer insisted on doing so, it could cause the Kanla Empire's military to lose trust in New Flyer and affect the cooperation between the two sides. Basically, Russell's words and O's meaning were similar. In any case, they did not want New Flyer to have a foot in both boats and maintain cooperation with two empires at the same time. Russell's warning was more specific. He expressed that if New Flyer continued to maintain cooperation with the Mala Empire, then not only would it affect the cooperation between New Flyer and the Kanla Empire in the field of military magic machines, it would also likely affect the cooperation between the two sides in the field of civilian magic machines. To be specific, the Kanla Empire would most likely judge New Flyer as an enemy based on this and refuse to allow New Flyer's products to enter the Kanla Empire's territory. I believe that Chairman Su is very clear that losing a huge market like the Kanla Empire would be a serious loss for New Flyer. So, Chairman Su, please consider carefully and don't make the wrong choice. Russell's warning to Sui could even be said to be a threat. It was obviously not a joke, but when it fell into Sui's ears, these guys, why do they like to talk nonsense so much? Sui dug his ears with a look of disdain on his face. Although the two empires reacted relatively quickly and understood the importance of military magic machines, they still did not understand the situation clearly. They still put themselves in a high and mighty position, acting as if they were giving New Flyer a chance to cooperate with New Flyer. But in reality? What's the old saying? The wheel of history has already started rolling, and anyone who stands in its way can only be crushed. Sui smiled lightly and threw O and Russell's warning and threat to the back of his mind. The current situation made it clear that the two empires were taking the initiative to cooperate with New Flyer, not the other way around. It was meaningless for them to put on such a high and mighty attitude. Even if the military of the two empires were dissatisfied and even wary of New Flyer, how could they not do something like this if they did not want to? In particular, the Kanla Empire had suffered great losses in 2 consecutive wars with the Kingdom of Ruhr. They felt the threat posed by the military magic machines even more deeply. If not for their reputation, they would have already pounced on New Flyer like the Mala Empire, hoping to buy the military magic machines. There was no need for them to beat around the bush like now. As for the Mala Empire, they did not have to worry. Although they did not have the same pain as the Kanla Empire, since the Kanla Empire had shown interest in the military magic machines produced by New Flyer, the Mala Empire would definitely follow suit and not allow themselves to fall behind the Kanla Empire in this aspect. To put it simply, Sui treated the two empires as chess pieces in his hands and used the hostile relationship between them to raise his value. This method was just like what Mentor Carmilla and Sui realized. It was like playing with fire and was extremely dangerous. However, Sui was very confident in the outcome because with the current situation, the two empires could not pose any threat to New Flyer at all. Putting aside the military magic machines, Sui was most concerned about the civilian magic machines that Russell had mentioned. There was even less of a need to worry about that. If the military magic machines could still have problems due to the scruples of the two empires, then the trend of the civilian magic machines had already turned into a surging torrent that couldn't be stopped by just one person. Sui picked up last month's financial report in his hand and looked at the rows of data on it. He narrowed his eyes and revealed a smile like a fox that had succeeded in his scheme. Chapter 884. A large transport magic car was quickly driving on the largest road in the southern province of the Kanla Empire. Purring! The tires rolled over a pothole on the road, causing the entire car to shake. Nasuz, who was driving the magic car, jumped out of his seat before falling back down. He felt a pain coming from his butt and couldn't help complaining. What kind of broken roads are these in the Kanla Empire? They're so uneven. After this trip, my butt is about to split in half. Haffer, sitting in the passenger seat, looked like he was already used to it, so he couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Kid, if your butt isn't split in half, could it be split in 3? Alright, stop complaining. You'll be coming here many times in the future, get used to it. Keep running on this broken road? Nasuz frowned and shook his head. Nasuz shook his head. I say, Uncle, isn't the Kanla Empire richer than our Lampari kingdom? Why aren't they willing to build more roads? Not only is it more comfortable for us to run, it's also faster. You think that this is something that can be done with money? Haffer rolled his eyes at his nephew. He looked at the potholes in front of him and gave a helpless sigh. Although the Kanla Empire is rich, they aren't willing to build roads, so what can we do? This isn't right. Our Lampari kingdom is filled with roads. How could a large empire like the Kanla Empire not know the benefits of roads? Why aren't they willing to build them? Nasuz was still confused. How would I know? Haffer gave a laugh from his nostrils. Haffer gave a snort. Perhaps the nobles of the Kanla Empire like the feeling of riding their horse carriages on these small roads. Nasuz muttered before continuing to drive the large transport magic car forward. Seeing that he wasn't complaining, Nasuz fell silent and began to plan the rest of the trip. Since the Kanla Empire and the Lampari Kingdom signed the agreement, opening the Lampari Kingdom's market to them, in the past month and a half, this was the 4th time he had come to this giant empire. Although it was very hard each time, he had earned quite a bit in the past month by transporting goods from the Lampari Kingdom to the Kanla Empire. This time he had brought his nephew Nasuz along. Other than because his nephew had gotten his driver's license from the New Flyer last year, so he was qualified to drive the large transport magic car, he also wanted him to see the world and familiarize himself with how to do business here, so he could train him into a capable assistant in the future. As for the matters between the Kanla Empire and the Lampari Kingdom, a normal small merchant like him naturally didn't understand. He only knew that after the Kanla Empire opened the domestic market to the Lampari Kingdom, they could transport many goods to the Kanla Empire to sell. The tariffs were much lower than before, so this was a very good business opportunity. If the agreement between the Kanla Empire and the Lampari Kingdom didn't change, he was confident in expanding this business. It would be much better than him being a normal small merchant in the Lampari Kingdom. The only obstacle was that something might happen to the Kanla Empire. As long as there was a problem with such a large empire, it would be enough to crush a small merchant like him to pieces, without being able to resist at all. I hope that Her Majesty can maintain a good relationship with the Kanla Empire. Thinking of this, Haffer sincerely prayed in his heart. Hey, Uncle! At this time, Nasuz, who had been silent for a bit, suddenly spoke up. What is it? I've never been to the Kanla Empire before, and I always felt that this large empire would be much better than a small country like our Lampari Kingdom in many aspects. But after personally seeing it this time, I feel that the Kanla Empire is much worse than our Lampari Kingdom in many aspects. Seeing the confused look on Nasuz's face, Haffer couldn't help laughing. He thought that this kid really had the same feeling as him when he came to the Kanla Empire. Tell me, which part of the Kanla Empire can't compare to our Lampari kingdom? Hafra deliberately asked. Let's not talk about anything else, let's talk about the road in front of us. Nasuz pointed at the road in front of them and said without any politeness, this road should lead to the Kanla Empire's third largest city, Laru City. If it was our Lampari kingdom, there would definitely be a very wide road. But look at this road, not mentioning how broken it is, it's also very narrow. I think that this road can only allow 2 large transport magic cars to drive side by side, one more can't pass. The broken road is indeed the biggest problem, but what else? Is there anything else? Hafra asked. Anything else? Did you forget when we were resting in Ive City? Although it was a small city, there was only a single restaurant in the entire city. That was too exaggerated. Moreover, what kind of things were they selling? They didn't even have fresh meat, it was simply too shabby. If it was our Lampari kingdom, not to mention our Karma city, even if it was a small city, we would at least be able to eat meat. What? You're not satisfied because you can't eat meat? A kid like you can't live without meat. Aren't you afraid that your family will become poor sooner or later? Hafra said with a smile. Che, can I become poor from eating meat? The pork in Karma City is only selling for 2 silver coins per pound. Even if I eat half a pound a day, it's impossible for my family to become poor. Brat, did you forget how hungry you were when you were young? Hafra rolled his eyes at him. Hafra rolled his eyes at Hafra. Don't forget, the reason why you can eat meat so happily these 2 years is because our Lampari kingdom has a lot of grain, so we can take out enough feed to raise pigs. It's already good that the people of the Kanla Empire have enough grain to feed themselves. How could they have that much free time to raise pigs? Is that so? Nasuz scratched his head. Anyway, it's far worse than our Lampari kingdom. Moreover, we went to find a faucet to wash our hands and get some water for the carriage, but in the end, there was no running water in Ai Fu City, so I had to run to that old well to get water. Really? What's wrong with letting you train a bit? Hafra shook his head with a smile. You're completely used to the comfortable life of our Lampari kingdom, you're not used to the backward life of the Kanla Empire. Hafra was suddenly stunned. What did he just say? Backward? He actually used the word backward to describe the Kanla Empire so naturally? This was one of the 2 empires of the continent. This was the Kanla Empire that, other than the Mala Empire, the people of the other small countries could only look up to with envy. But thinking about it, Hafra didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Compared to the Lampari kingdom, after entering the Kanla Empire, he did feel that there were many inconveniences. For example, the broken roads that Nasuz mentioned, the lack of food, the water that required manpower, and the magic cell phone that he was holding in his chest that didn't have any use at all. Everything showed that it was backward. That's right, it was backward. Compared to the Lampari kingdom, the Kanla Empire was backward in many aspects. This wasn't just a momentary illusion, it was the truth. Uncle, what's wrong? Why are you in a daze? Hearing Hafra suddenly not say anything else, Nasuz turned to look at him. He found that his uncle's mouth was half open and his face was in a daze, so he couldn't help asking in a curious voice. Nothing. Hafra waved his hand, indicating that there was no problem. However, when he calmed down, he couldn't help having a strange feeling in his mind. The Kanla Empire was backward compared to the Lampari kingdom? If this thought was placed in any other country on the continent, or even the Lampari kingdom from a few years ago, it would only make people laugh. Because this was simply a giant joke. The Kanla Empire was one of the 2 empires on the continent, so of course it was much stronger than the Lampari kingdom in all aspects. How could the word backward be used to describe the Kanla Empire? But from Hafra's recent experience with the Lampari kingdom and the Kanla Empire, this was an indisputable fact. The Kanla Empire was backward compared to the Lampari kingdom. Hafra's lips twitched and his expression became strange, but there was a trace of joy and pride in his heart. Without him noticing, the Lampari kingdom had already become this strong? When he faced the merchants of the Kanla Empire before, he always felt a sense of inferiority. But after thinking this through, he suddenly found that there was a sense of superiority in his heart. What qualifications did the merchants of the Kanla Empire have to put on airs in front of him? They were just a bunch of country bumpkins who hadn't seen the world. This thought made Hafra's mood much better and he couldn't help breaking out in laughter. Hearing Hafra's sudden laughter, Nasuz turned to look at him in surprise. He found that the smile on his face was incomparably happy and his laughter was refreshing, so it could be seen that he was in a very good mood. Nasuz couldn't help feeling confused. What was wrong with Uncle? They were clearly just discussing which part of the Kanla Empire was inconvenient, so why did Uncle suddenly laugh in such a strange manner? Could it be that this topic made Uncle think of something strange? But no matter how hard Nasuz thought, he couldn't understand this. So he could only shake his head and look forward. He focused on driving the large transport magic car, quickly heading towards the outline of the city that appeared on the horizon. Chapter 885. Half an hour later, the large transport magic car slowly stopped outside the west gate of Larue City. Hafra jumped out of the front passenger seat and ran over to the Larue city guards in charge of guarding the city gate. He had a smile on his face as he greeted the leader of the small team. "Hey, Captain Wayne, good afternoon. It really is hard to guard the city gate on such a hot day." While saying this, he reached his hand out and naturally shook Captain Wayne's hand. The 3 gold coins in his hand were easily transferred to Captain Wayne's hand. Captain Wayne softly rubbed the 3 gold coins in his hand and a friendly smile appeared on his serious face. "Ha ha, this is the work the Lord City Lord gave us, who would dare neglect it?" Captain Wayne waved his hand to the 2 subordinates behind him after saying this. "Go check what's in the car. Hurry up, do you understand?" How could the 2 subordinates not understand the meaning in his word? They climbed into the back of the large transport magic car and pretended to check it before quickly jumping out. Reporting to the captain, "There isn't anything suspicious on the car." That's good." Captain Wayne nodded before turning to Hafra to say, "Since everything is normal, you can go in after paying the gate tax." Hafra thanked him and took out a small purse from his chest, handing it over to Captain Wayne. Captain Wayne took it and didn't even look at it before throwing it to the clerk of the City Lord Manor, who was in charge of collecting the gate tax. He waved his hand and signaled to Hafra that they could go in. Hafra thanked him again. When he was about to return to the large transport magic car, he found that there were quite a few fresh flowers hanging on the city gate. The area around the city gate was much cleaner compared to the last few times he came. It was clear that it had been cleaned up. Even the beggars and vagabonds around the city gate that he saw the last few times weren't there now. This situation made Hafra a bit curious. After thinking about it, he asked Captain Wayne in a low voice, "Captain Wayne, it seems like an important person is coming?" Captain Wayne looked around before replying in a low voice, "There are people from the governor's manor coming to inspect in the next 2 days, so we have to deal with them. But this isn't related to a small merchant like you. Just remember to be obedient and not cause trouble." Of course. Hafra nodded. After thinking for a bit, he waved his hand and 2 more gold coins appeared in his hand, which he handed over to Captain Wayne. "Captain Wayne, if anything happens in the next few days, I ask you to take care of me." Captain Wayne looked at the gold coins in his hand and slightly knit his brows before shaking his head. "I can't do this, I can't help you." No, you're mistaken. I hope that you can tell me ahead of time if there is any news." "This is just a small gift, just treat it as treating your brothers to some tea." Hafra still insisted on holding out his hand. Captain Wayne took the Hafra gold coins. Hafra, all right. I'll take care of it. Hafra thanked him with a smile before returning to the large transport magic car. Humph, you were just saying that the Canla Empire can't compare to our Lampari Kingdom. Look, now there's an example. Our Lampari Kingdom has already abolished the city gate tax, but the Canla Empire is still collecting it. When the large transport magic car passed through the city gate, Nasuz, who was driving, complained. There's nothing to complain about, you have to follow the rules wherever you go. Hafra shook his head. Although he denied Nasuz's complaints, he was still a bit dissatisfied in his heart. The Lampari Kingdom had abolished the city gate tax since 3 years ago, but the Canla Empire was one of the 2 empires that still collected it. Moreover, although the city gate tax of the Canla Empire was different, it wasn't low. With a cart of goods like this, he had to pay a minimum of 5 gold coins each time he entered a city. Along the way, in order to avoid paying the gate tax, he and Nasuz didn't enter any city except for the necessary supplies. But even like this, he had still paid over 20 gold coins in tax. Adding in the 30 gold coins he had to pay to enter the Canla Empire, before he even sold his goods, he had already paid over 50 gold coins in tax. If he couldn't sell this cart of goods, he would suffer a great loss on this trip. But he wasn't worried about this with his previous experiences. At least the people of Larue City welcomed his goods very much, so he didn't need to worry about selling them. Turn left up ahead. Hafra reminded. The large transport magic car made a hard turn on a small road that wasn't wide in Larue City and entered a street that was filled with shops on both sides, looking very prosperous. All right, let's stop here. We can't go forward anymore. Hafra gave another order. Nasuz stopped the large transport magic car and Hafra jumped out. He quickly walked into a shop on the left side of Larue City's business street. After a while, Hafra led several large men and a middle-aged man out of the shop. Those large men didn't say a thing as they climbed into the back of the magic car and began moving the goods down. They were very familiar with this. It was clear that this wasn't their first time doing this. Nasuz in the car saw the middle-aged man beside Hafra and immediately jumped out. He charged in front of him and shouted, "Uncle!" This middle-aged man was Hafra's big brother, who was Nasuz's Uncle Prado. 20 years ago, because of the great famine in the Lampari Kingdom, Prado, who was close to 20 years old, had left the Lampari Kingdom to beg for food in order to not be a burden to his family. Finally he had a chance to settle down in the Canla Empire's Larue City, and after 10 years of hard work, he had opened a small shop here. His life wasn't bad. 6 years ago, Prado, who had stabilized his life, had contacted his family in the Lampari Kingdom through letters and had even returned to the Lampari Kingdom to meet his family. After that, they kept in contact through letters, but because they were too far away they rarely met. Until the Lampari Kingdom and the Canla Empire signed a new agreement and the Canla Empire opened their markets to the Lampari Kingdom, Hafra had an idea. He wanted to ship the Lampari Kingdom's products to the Canla Empire to sell, which was considered a real connection. Good kid. Last time you came back, you didn't even reach my chest. I never thought that in just a few years you would be taller than me. Moreover, you're this strong, not bad, not bad. Seeing Nasuz's spirited appearance, Prado gave a nod of praise. Hee, uncle, it's been 6 years. I'm almost 18 now. Of course I'm tall. Nasuz rubbed his head, feeling a little embarrassed. Nasuz scratched his head a bit. Then again, I eat meat every day, so of course I'm growing fast. Eat meat every day? Prado was surprised. Prado was a bit surprised. You eat meat every day? Yeah. Nasuz pursed his lips. Nasuz curled his lips. I haven't eaten any meat in the past 2 days, so my mouth is almost bland. Prado looked at Nasuz with a strange expression before turning to Hafra. Has your family's life really become this good? Hafra nodded with a smile. Our Lampari Kingdom's life is completely different from before. Big brother, you should go back and take a look when you have time, you'll definitely be shocked. That's right, uncle, the current Lampari kingdom is completely different from 6 years ago. If you compare it, I feel that the Kanla Empire isn't. Coo! Hafra suddenly gave a strong cough, cutting off Nasu's word. Big brother, I was being serious just now. You should go back and take a look when you have time. Mom and Dad are old now and we don't know how long they can live, so they will definitely be happy if you go back and see them. Then again, with this magic car, it won't take long to go back, so it's very convenient. That's right, it only took us 2 days to come here from the Lampari kingdom. It's not like when you went back last time, it took an exaggerated month. Nasu's cut in again. This. Prado was a bit stunned, as if he couldn't accept what Hafra and Nasu's said. But after thinking about it, he was awakened by his family and gave a strong nod. Alright, since it's like this, after selling this batch of goods, I'll go back with you and see Mom and Dad. Anyway, Hafra, you said that there were many business opportunities in the Lampari kingdom, so I'll go back and take a look. If I can find some opportunities along the way, that would be even better. Seeing Prado agree, Hafra and Nasu's immediately revealed excited smiles. Prado had been away from home for 20 years and had only gone back once 6 years ago, so his parents missed him very much. If he could go back, his parents would definitely be very happy. Ha ha, big brother, then let's work harder and quickly sell this batch of goods so we can go home as soon as possible. Hafra happily said. That depends on what you're transporting this time. If the goods aren't good, it won't be easy to sell them, Prado said while shaking his head. Hafra said with a confident smile, Relax, I always transport good things, so I guarantee that they'll sell quickly. Take a look if you don't believe me. After saying this, Hafra pulled Prado to the back of the magic car and took a bag of goods from a worker. He tore it open with both hands and revealed the goods inside. Prado glanced over and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Oh my God! Hafra, where did you get so much money to buy all these good goods? Hafra laughed. Big brother, if I told you that I spent less than 1,000 gold coins on these goods, would you believe me? Prado looked at him in surprise, as his eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 886. When the sun rose into the sky, a motorcade of 7 horse carriages slowly stopped outside the gates of Larue City. The city lord of Larue City, Count Nazaps, who had been waiting at the city gate for a long time, immediately went forward to welcome them. Following behind him were the nobles of Larue City with status and status. However, in front of this fleet of carriages, these lofty figures of Larue City all bowed their proud bodies. Even the expressions on their faces carried a hint of humility. There was only one reason for them to act like this. It was because of the family crest on the 7 horse carriages. It represented the number 1 family of the Kanla Empire's southern province, the Windsor family. The one who came to Larue City this time was the current head of the Windsor family. At the same time, they were the subordinates sent by the Governor Duke Windsor to patrol Larue City. Although the status of these subordinates couldn't compare to most of the people here, because they represented the will of Duke Windsor, they had to show enough respect and awe. The first horse carriage stopped in front of Count Nazap. The door opened and a middle-aged man who was around 40 years old came out. After seeing him, Count Nazaps couldn't help being surprised. This middle-aged man was the manager of the governor's manor, Amato. Although his position wasn't high, he was a trusted aide of Duke Windsor and was trusted by Duke Windsor. But with his status, he wasn't suited to be a special envoy. Manager Amato could clearly see the doubt in Count Nazap's heart. He came over and whispered in his ear, Sir Count, the Duchess also came this time, I ask you to properly arrange it. Count Nazaps was stunned. Didn't they say that they would only send an ordinary inspection team? Why did the honored Duchess also come? Just as he was wondering in his heart, the door of the third carriage opened and a young maidservant jumped out. Then, a noble lady slowly and gracefully walked down from the carriage. As the city lord of the third largest city in the southern province, Count Nazaps had seen Duchess Windsor at the banquets of the governor's manor many times, so of course he recognized her with a single glance. He didn't have time to think as he quickly came forward. He gave a serious bow to Duchess Windsor and said with a smile, "Duchess, it really is our Larue City's honor that you can come here." The other nobles of Larue City didn't recognize Duchess Windsor, but seeing Count Nazap's actions and hearing what he said, of course they reacted. They immediately came over and bowed to Duchess Windsor. Duchess Windsor casually waved her hand. "All right, I just came out to relax, you don't need to care about me. Go and do your business." Although she said that, as the Duchess, how could Count Nazaps and the others not be bothered by her presence? So Count Nazaps didn't care about how to welcome the inspection team. He focused on how to welcome and entertain Duchess Windsor. Time was short, so everyone in Larue City was a bit flustered. It was a good thing that Duchess Windsor was very easygoing. She had Count Nazaps skip the formalities and their group smoothly entered Larue City. "Madam, if you want to relax, I strongly recommend the Alps Mountains 30 kilometers to the east of the city. It is now late spring and the flowers on the mountains are blooming. The temperature is cool, the air is fresh, and there is a large lawn at the foot of the mountain. You can ride a horse on it. There is a private manor that I've already prepared, after you go there." Count Nazaps and Duchess Windsor were in the same carriage, heading to the city lord's manor while recommending the scenic spots around Larue City to her. Duchess Windsor carelessly listened, occasionally nodding in agreement. This performance made Count Nazaps feel a bit unsettled. It was strange enough that Duchess Windsor suddenly came here. Why did she have this kind of attitude? Did she really come here to relax? Count Nazaps didn't believe it. But Duchess Windsor didn't say much on the way, which made him feel a bit helpless. The horse carriage passed several streets, and when they were about to head in the direction of the city lord's manor, Duchess Windsor, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly pointed out the window. "What is going on?" Count Nazaps looked in the direction she was pointing and saw that the street to the left was filled with people. It was very noisy and very noisy. "Oh, this is the city's business street. For so many days today. Perhaps there's some activity going on in the business street? This is a normal thing since this business street is the busiest place. Most of the people from the surrounding cities come here." "No." Duchess Windsor shook her head and cut Count Nazaps off. "If it's a normal activity, it's impossible to attract this many people. Moreover, look, these people are all holding the same thing. It seems like they bought it from the same store." Count Nazaps was startled as he focused his gaze. He discovered that the people who had squeezed out of the crowd were all holding a few pieces of brightly colored clothing. It was obvious that they were all from the same clothing store. "Go and ask what is going on," Duchess Windsor suddenly said. Count Nazaps was feeling that Duchess Windsor's observation skills were this good, but when he heard this, he was surprised again. Why was the Duchess this curious about this matter? It really was a bit strange. But of course he wouldn't go against Duchess Windsor's wishes. He found 2 city lords' manor guards and had them ask clearly. After a few minutes, a guard came back to report. "Lord City Lord, it's said that there is a store selling clothes on the business street that is holding a promotion. The lowest price for each piece of clothing is 50 silver coins. They started advertising it 3 days ago, and because it's cheap, they attracted this many people to buy it today. A piece of clothing is only 50 silver coins." Count Nazaps and Duchess Windsor looked at each other, seeing the surprise in each other's eyes. Although the clothes the two of them normally wore weren't of the same grade as the clothes of the commoners, that didn't mean that they didn't understand the price of commoners' clothes. In the market price of the southern province, even if it was made of normal cloth, it would cost at least 2 gold coins. This price was something many commoners couldn't afford, So most of the commoners would just make their own clothes and wouldn't spend money to buy it. Over time, most of the tailor shops stopped making clothes for the commoners. They only made clothes for the wealthier nobles and merchants. Naturally, the price was higher. Now this store was selling it for 50 silver coins each. Weren't they afraid of losing blood? Buy a few for me to see. Duchess Windsor gave the order. Count Nazaps gave the guard a look, and the guard immediately squeezed in. Count Nazaps, your LaRue city actually has such an interesting company, it really is unexpected. Duchess Windsor suddenly said this to Count Nazaps with a smile. Seeing the smile on Duchess Windsor's face, Count Nazap's heart tightened. He could only say with a smile, "These merchants always have strange ideas." Is that so? Duchess Windsor suddenly turned to the west with a complicated expression, not knowing what she was thinking. Seeing the expression on her face, Count Nazaps tactfully didn't say anything. After a bit of silence in the carriage, the two guards came back at the same time with a pile of clothes in their hand. Duchess Windsor and Count Nazaps looked over these clothes and gave a "e" sound at the same time. They could tell with a single glance that the workmanship of these clothes wasn't bad, and the material wasn't the lowest quality linen, rather it should be the cotton that many commoners liked. Adding in the fact that it was evenly dyed, it didn't seem like something that was roughly made. The two of them took a few pieces of clothes from the injured guards and touched them. They felt that the texture of the clothes in their hands wasn't bad, it was completely different from the clothes made by commoners. Count Nazaps even reached out to touch the clothes under the armor to prove his thoughts, confirming that the texture of the clothes in his hands was even better than the clothes the guards were wearing. It had to be known that the wages of the guards under him weren't low and the clothes they wore were much better than what commoners wore. These clothes actually sold for less than 50 silver coins. This was too unbelievable. Duchess Windsor on the other side was paying attention to something completely different from Count Nazaps. She just touched it and immediately confirmed that the fabric of these clothes was fine, it definitely wasn't of normal quality. And after seriously looking at the details of the clothes, she found that the stitching of these clothes was also fine. Each needle hole and thread was exactly the same, looking very neat. Not mentioning anything else, just based on this kind of needlework, it was enough to become a high-level tailor in any city in the southern province. The clothes they sewed definitely wouldn't be cheap. After a pause, Duchess Windsor opened the clothes in her hands and after taking a look, she couldn't help calling out in surprise. This dress was a long dress. Not only was the material of the dress exquisitely made, but even the design looked extremely exquisite. The design looked very simple at first glance, but if one looked closely, they could see a trace of luxury hidden in the various details. Just based on the design, it couldn't compare to the dress in her hands that was designed by the top designer of the Canla Empire and sold for 800 gold coins, but it wasn't that far off. Duchess Windsor was certain that with this outstanding design, if it was changed to a more expensive fabric, as long as it had fine workmanship, it would definitely sell for no less than 500 gold coins in any city in the empire. But now, how much is this dress? Duchess Windsor asked the two guards. The two guards scratched their heads. We didn't ask clearly, we just gave them 10 gold coins and they let us pick 10 pieces. Duchess Windsor and Count Nazaps were both surprised. 10 gold coins? 10 pieces? The two looked at each other and they could see the disbelief in each other's eyes. Such a good dress only sold for 1 gold coin? Do you want other tailor shops to survive? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.